Speaking out of Akron, Ohio, representing Team Popping the Boys, the headline god, Jeremy Lambert, and his co-host, speaking out of Atlanta, Georgia, representing more than one royal family, the king of indie viewing, Stephen Jensen. And this is the Spotlight on Fightful.
Welcome everyone to the Spotlight here on Fightful. I'm Jeremy Lambert. That's Stephen Jensen, and shout out as always the Big Dick MLJ for the intro. It is Thursday, May 16th. Jensen, how you doing, buddy?
Excuse me, I'm doing all right. Still on the melatonin. Still pretty tired, and sorry we're a little bit late this morning. That was more technical difficulties on my end, but I'm doing good. Jeremy, how you doing this morning?
Well, I am the one who actually has to run out at 10 o'clock today. So Jensen will be wrapping up the show. But yeah, we got a lot to talk about today. As always, right? The world of wrestling never really slows down. So there's always something going on, always something to talk about. Anything you want to talk about before we get into wrestling?
No, not really. I went to Dave & Buster's Damn It last night. It was a good time. My birthday is coming up this week, so they give you like $10 of just like credits, which I didn't even realize I was getting, which is really nice. They're doing the free plug for Dave & Buster's. They're doing the half off on their food right now. So I went in there and won about 4,000 tickets, on like $10, which is pretty good. Got myself these new Dave & Buster's earbuds, so that's pretty cool.
Dave & Buster's, damn it.
Yeah, for sure. The only downside, so they're wireless, which is nice. So like, how usually I'd always have to watch my arms because I have the cord in front of me. So now I have all this extra room, do my karate moves and stuff.
Fight off. Yeah, it's a fight off invisible people.
But unfortunately I didn't have a lot of time to test them this morning. I tested them on my iPhone last night and they worked fine. This morning, only one of the earbuds is working. I don't have time to fix it now, but it's good. We're good. I can hear you just fine. And once again, I like having I like not having to worry about all this. So I feel like Mac from Always Sunny doing my karate moves. But anyway, yeah, we can talk about some wrestling. I know we started a little bit late, guys, and that's the reason why. I was trying to get the earbuds to work and my melatonin to kind of wear off this morning, and I'm starting to feel a little bit better. Starting to feel awake, so we're good to go.
The karate moves will wake you up.
Yeah, for sure.
Guys, leave a thumbs up on the video. Leave a super chat. Get your question, comment, statement read on the air. Subscribe to the channel. Subscribe to our sister channel, Fightful Overbooked. There we go. Get all the plugs out of the way. At 10 o'clock, we had an interview with Dave Penzer, legendary WCW announcer. Also did announcing in TNA/Impact Wrestling. I just finished up with them earlier this year. So he has a new book coming out called Sitting Ringside, or not coming out. It's already out. You can go to davidpenzerbook.com. You can go to Amazon. Links are below if you would like to check out the book. But yeah, a fantastic book. A lot of insight and knowledge there from someone who was at every single WCW Nitro and WCW Thunder. So really fun interview with him. That's coming up at about 10 o'clock Eastern. All right, let's get into it. Let's start with
over 1 million fans and a great number in the demo tuned in. And it was a great show, and I think it's been a run of great shows.
I have to update these bumpers because no Millie. It's been like a year since they got 1 million fans watching. So
it's true.
I have to update that.
I hear people say the word the spotlight pretty often in promos and stuff, and I always like think about like going on my way to clip it, but it'd be too many times. Like almost every week on some show someone mentions the word the spotlight, but there's opportunities for new bumpers.
Yeah, I'd have to pay attention more to, like, I hear it as well, so I'd have to just really like mark down when it is, because then I'll hear it and then I'll forget about it like 2 minutes later. So anyway, AEW last night. Eddie Kingston is out. We will talk a little bit about Eddie Kingston and the other spotlight, but we'll mix it in here. Eddie Kingston suffered a leg injury against Gabe Kidd. New Japan resurgence. He banged the back of his leg on the guardrail, taking a brainbuster suplex through a table from the apron to the outside. So he is out of Anarchy in the Arena. But Team AEW found a very suitable replacement in the form of Darby Allin, who had been sidelined with a broken foot. He says he's not 100%, which I fully believe, but he's back. He's going to do this match. He, much like Bryan Danielson, absolute madman. I think this is, I don't want to say it's an upgrade because Eddie Kingston rules. It's very logical that it's Darby Allin, though. They would have had a hard time to find someone better suited for this particular story than Darby Allin. I think Darby Allin would have made more sense than Bryan Danielson if they originally had Darby. So I don't know when he was supposed to return. It seems like he may have come back early just for this, which bless him. But I think this is about as good as you can do, if not even better, than having Kingston in the match.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, we talked about that last week a little bit when we were talking about Team AEW, and I brought up how, like, no one on Team AEW was an actual AEW day one person. Like, a lot of them were early on. Like, FTR came into the company early on, and Kingston was early on with the TNT challenge to Cody. Danielson was, a little while, and he's still been there a while now when you think about it. But, I mean, so when we were talking last week, one thing I said was, that I thought if there was other pillars available, that'd be good representation of original AEW. Obviously, Jack Perry's already on the other side with the Elite. And then you have Sammy Guevara, who's dealing with a suspension, at least like to the best of our knowledge, he's still suspended. And then, of course, you have MJF, who's not only out for an injury, but also when he returns, he has the built-in story with the Undisputed Elite, or the Undisputed Kingdom, rather, which we've talked about as well. They got to figure something out to make that whole thing work whenever MJF's back and Adam Cole can wrestle again. But the other person we were mentioning was, like, if Darby was available, Darby would make perfect sense. He would have been like the best person to be on this team. He would actually been my number one choice, probably, of like everyone available on that whole roster. I think I would have looked at that and been like, okay, who makes the most sense? Day one AEW, lives and breathes, bleeds AEW. And also, like, he's coming off of the Sting retirement. So, like, he should be elevated regardless. Like, he should be a main event level guy. And if he's not going to be involved at the moment, excuse me, with like Swerve and the world title, which I think will probably eventually happen, given the history between Swerve and Darby, the two of them really good friends in real life and have known each other a long time, wrestled each other and trained a long time and stuff. So, like, I think that if you're going to wait to do like Darby and like the main event, or not the main event, but like the world title scene, this is like the second best thing he could possibly be doing. Or honestly, probably maybe even the best, depending on how you view this story. Like, you know what I mean? These are both this is the main storyline going on in AEW. You have this. You have some pretty big stories actually that we're gonna talk about. But my point being, Darby's a perfect fit for this group. Just like you said. So, I was actually hoping he was going to be the one to come out and save Team AEW last night. The only thing in the back of my mind was like, didn't this dude just get hit by a bus? And like, wasn't he going to be taking time off and all this other stuff? And he, and I'll say this last thing I'll mention before I throw it back to you. But I remember I've talked about it before, but the first time I saw Darby Allin wrestle was in a high school gym in Chattanooga back in like 2017 or 18 or something. He wrestled Joey Janela in Chattanooga at an SCI show. And I remember being so impressed by him, and everybody was so impressed by him. And he had done some stuff with Evolve around that time as well. And it just seemed like at that time, that was going to be like kind of like the pinnacle of his career, because he was such a small guy in comparison to the people the WWE was hiring. And it just felt like, damn, this guy's got so much talent, but like, will the world ever really see this? Because I don't think the WWE is ever going to give him that shot. And then a couple years later, AEW becomes a thing. And I was at the show in Atlanta, the first ever AEW show in Atlanta, the one where Cody did the moonsault off the cage to Wardlow. And during that show, Darby Allin made a return to AEW. He had been like taken out by the Inner Circle, and he came out to save Jon Moxley from an Inner Circle attack. And when he came out, that's when I knew Darby Allin was going to be a top guy, probably like forever in AEW, because the pop he got for his return when his music hit and he skated down the entrance ramp, I've been a part of a lot of loud pops at live wrestling shows. that was like way up there for some of the biggest that I've ever been a part of. Like that was an awesome moment. And I knew that Darby was going to be a made man in AEW. He was super over with the crowd. And it only got bigger and better when Sting came in and everything that they've accomplished together. And Sting's retirement was so perfect and everything. So all that to say, Darby Allin's the literally, I can't think of anybody who would be a better choice of who's available that AEW has to be on AEW's team.
I do with Darby. He said he's not 100%, which again, I fully believe, considering a broken foot is a pretty big injury. Like I think he was supposed to be out. I'll double check how long he initially thought he was going to be out, but that was 2 months ago. That was March 13th. So almost exactly 2 months. I don't know if it says, it doesn't have a full timeline of when he was supposed to be out, but a broken foot in something that's a tough injury. And then he got hit by a bus on top of that. So, he says he's not 100%. Doing this match, not 100%. I don't know how that's going to look for him. He seemed like he was moving well last night, so I'm going to trust that he seemed okay with everything. He's obviously healthy enough to at least go through and do this match. We'll see how he ends up looking in the match. It's going to be a stunt show anyway. It's Anarchy in the Arena. It's not like you're pulling off, super crisp wrestling moves. It's a lot of walking and brawling and falling off of things and jumping off of things. So I'm sure he will look just fine in this match. I hope it doesn't lead to another injury that's going to put him on the shelf longer, and they just kind of brought him back to rush him into this match. But if that's the case, and that's something Tony was obviously fine with, Darby wanted to do, that's their prerogative. I'm not going to police these professional wrestlers if this is what they want to do. That's not my place. Darby, again, absolute crazy person in the first place. Like, I think that they're fortunate that he was willing to do this, because the other options, I see people in the chat saying Mark Briscoe, like that would have made sense. Friends with FTR and everything, like being part of that, but it would have felt
part of AEW though. That's the only problem. He's like mainly on Ring of Honor and hasn't done.
He's not really even on Ring of Honor. Like I know he's the world champion, but
he's the world champion. Yeah, yeah.
Like, come on. Yeah. Eddie Kingston was barely on Ring of Honor as the world champion. The champions aren't there. Kyle Fletcher is more on AEW TV eating ills all day as the ROH TV champion.
For sure.
Darby makes the most sense from like a story perspective, and I don't remember if I said it on this show or one of the 100 other shows that I do. I think AEW caught a bad break. I don't necessarily want to say it was a bad break because they knew it was coming, but coming off the Sting retirement and Darby being such a big part of that, the plan was for him to climb Everest anyway. So they knew he was going to be missing time after the whole pay-per-view anyway. It was just, he ended up with a broken foot and couldn't climb Everest. So he was out because of that. He was going to be out regardless, whether he was climbing Everest or in this case, what happened, which was an injury. And I think they caught a bad break off of that because he had a lot of momentum coming off of that. And you couldn't capitalize on it because he was going to go away or did go away for one reason or another. So I think him coming back now, 2 months after all of this, is good for them and helps them, because I do think he had a lot coming out of Revolution and being part of Sting's whole retirement run. And there's obviously a story there with the Elite being the ones who retired Sting. Are they going to touch on the Bullet Club Gold stuff? They should. I mean, that's why he was out of action, but you got to get through. There's only a week left of television anyway. There's this week of Collision, Dynamite, and then next week Collision before Double or Nothing. So it's not like you got to fully put the Bullet Club's Gold stuff on the back burner. And who knows, maybe they get involved in Anarchy in the Arena. Maybe they're siding with the Elite with all of this. Very possible. I think they got options on that. I wouldn't ignore the Bullet Club Gold stuff until after the Anarchy in the Arena, though. I would have Jay White reference it in a promo. I would have Darby reference it in a promo before Anarchy in the Arena, just so you're not just completely ignoring it and then, okay, we'll pick it back up after Double or Nothing. Like, don't treat the audience like they don't know why Darby was out for 2 months.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it's interesting, not interesting, just kind of I guess interesting is the right word, but like Darby takes all these crazy risks in the ring, like doing the swanton off the ladder through the glass and Sting's retirement match, and all these crazy bumps where he'll like jump off off something really high or go through something, or like, I mean, he's just such a maniac in the stuff that he's willing to do. Tie his hands behind, they'll duct tape his hands behind his back and do suicide dives through the ropes and stuff. And of course, it's like the thing he got injured on, if I remember correctly, he was just like falling to that. It was like a move on the outside of the ring that was like a pretty like, it wasn't something that was that outrageous. It was just like a pretty regular bump on the outside. And that's not to say everything in pro wrestling is risky, right? Like, I mean, you can get hurt on literally anything. Adam Cole got hurt running down to the ring, and look how long he's been out for. I mean, it's just wild. But like, I just think it's kind of just interesting to think about that. Like all these crazy bumps, because there's like a debate in wrestling about that often. And it happened really recently again with like Billy Stark's clips about her doing like, dives to the outside on the chairs and on the indie scene and stuff like that. And Mouse had to like defend her in the comments and be like, look, my kid has never gotten hurt on something like that. Like the things that get people is usually it's like this kind of stuff that we're talking about, which is true. Because it's like Darby gets hurt on like this pretty standard thing, and then gets hurt by hit by a bus. Like completely I don't
think Darby got
related
hurt
to anything.
I don't think Darby got hurt by a standard thing though. Didn't he do like a front flip to the outside and he banged his foot on the guardrail?
Yeah. Okay. So it was. I mean, I say it's pretty standard because like he does that kind of stuff like every match. People do flips to the outside like often. I'm not saying it's safe. I'm just throwing out there like of all the crazy bumps we've seen Darby do and like be fine, and all this risks he takes, skateboarding and all this stuff. And it's like he got hurt on. I'm not like making fun of the fact. Obviously, it's just like there's that, and then the real kicker is like did you get hit by a bus? Like that is not related to anything. Just get hit by a bus. I mean, that's just wild. So, but you're right. Like the momentum with Bullet Club Gold, like they're going to have to do something about that. You're right. We do only have a week, like you mentioned. And I mean, it's a big week coming up next week because we got Double or Nothing and King and Queen of the Ring back-to-back nights.
That's
so
unfortunate.
Oh, dude, I'm looking forward to it. And I don't have to work because I took all of next week off work, and I have that next Monday off because of the Memorial Day. Yeah. So yeah, no, I'm hyped for a whole weekend full of wrestling next weekend. But yeah, like we're saying, Darby Allin by far the best choice. I don't hate the idea of Mark Briscoe being a part of the team, like someone had mentioned. But I don't think he makes as much sense as Darby. I don't think you can find anyone who would. Outside of like, I mean, the only other person would be like MJF. But he's in the same situation where he has a completely other storyline to come back to, and he also is presumably he's still hurt because he's not on television unless, I don't know how much of MJF and Adam Cole being back is reliant on the other. You know what I mean? I don't know if like one's being held off until the other is able to return, or if they're just going to like, once MJF's healthy, if Adam Cole still isn't, they'll still bring MJF back to do something else until Adam Cole's ready. I don't know. They've really pigeonholed themselves there with MJF and that Undisputed Kingdom thing, but that's a whole other topic. We've talked about that before, though.
Adam Cole could walk, and then all of a sudden we haven't seen him on television again.
Yeah, I mean and then Roddy's about to lose that international title to Ospreay, and like I don't know what this group does to. Anyway, we don't have to even talk. That's not even worth talking about honestly today.
Shout-out Spurs since Superset says Darby makes the two teams almost mirror images of each other. You got your generational tag teams, your best wrestler in the world, and now each team has a pillar. Really looking forward to this. That's a good point. Like they do. I think Darby, you couldn't have found a better replacement than Darby Allin. I thought Darby would have been better just as an original choice. I don't think that option was there because I think it was probably Eddie got hurt, and then Darby was like, okay. What do you need?
Yep.
where if Eddie doesn't get hurt, obviously Eddie's in the match, but they needed someone to step up. Darby was a guy who was going to feel that he could fill that role and step up and be in this spot. So I don't think he could have had a better choice than Darby Allin. Makes a lot of sense on multiple levels. One, as Chi-Town Spurs just pointed out, like how they can kind of mirror image each other now. Two, just the whole story with the Elite being an AEW original, being someone who clearly has a lot of respect for Tony Khan because of the spot that Tony gave him and everything, and that he's earned. Tony always talks very highly of Darby Allin and vice versa. So yeah, Darby makes a lot of sense. Glad he's back. Looking forward to the insane stuff he's probably going to do in this match. Hope he comes out of it okay as well. Hope everyone comes out of it okay.
Absolutely.
Other AEW spotlight, Adam Copeland and Malachi Black are going to have a barbed wire steel cage match at Double or Nothing. It's going to be good. I do wonder how you do this match and then you also do Anarchy in the Arena on top of this, because I feel like Anarchy in the Arena is headlining now. We talked a little bit last week about like what should headline this show. I think it's got to 100% be Anarchy in the Arena. They did it last year. It made sense to do it last year. Mercedes and Willow had a good contract. Honestly, a really good contract signing last night. I thought Willow's promo was great. And then laying out Mercedes, I thought it was really strong stuff.
The crowd went. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
The crowd went nuts for it too. Like I thought they were going to be maybe a little more split because like Mercedes has such a big fan base for herself, but like Willow is 1,000,000% the baby face here. She's getting the pops and they're booing Mercedes. So I mean, I said it weeks ago that like I'd prefer Willow to retain personally. I don't expect it to happen. I think that like Stokely or like there will be a turn or something, but like I was really, really happy to see the reaction Willow got last night. Good for her.
Yeah, they've done a good job of healing Mercedes, and the crowd is clearly taken to that, despite her fan base. Like she's been the heel and all this. Listen to all the stuff she says. Look at how she moves and the stuff she does as far as like cutting off Willow, taking the spotlight from Willow. And the announcers have mentioned that too. This isn't a thing of like, oh, it's a little subtle, but it's not something of like, oh, it's so subtle you can't tell. Like they know what they're doing in healing her. I guess we're still trying to figure out who attacked her. She's a terrible detective. Like, it's been a month now since she got attacked. You still haven't figured this out? What are we doing? But I don't think that's going to headline at this point. Swerve and Christian, it's got some good heat to it. I like the angle they did last night as well. Again, calling back to the picture with everything. Christian saying he's going to start taking stuff from Swerve. That was a good angle, but it feels like Anarchy in the Arena is headlining this show next weekend. Back to the barbed wire cage match. A little concerned of what they're going to do here and also to Anarchy in the Arena. I guess there'll just be no barbed wire and Anarchy in the Arena, but it feels like you might be stepping on one match a little too much, almost unnecessarily, because I get Copeland wants to do really fun stuff and crazy ideas, and he's basically just trying to be the new Sting out there for AEW, which bless him for it. But I don't know if this necessarily needs a steel cage barbed wire match.
And with this being a barbed wire steel cage match, this is like the barbed wire is on the top of the cage, right? That's probably what they're doing.
Yeah, that's typically how I think. But sometimes they might do it just wrapped around the entire cage. I don't know how it's gonna look.
I mean, that'd be cool if they made the entire thing out of barbed wire, or at least more of it. I mean, when I think barbed wire steel cage, I think like the coils of it or whatever on top of the cage, with the idea being you can't really escape. You can't really escape the cage because you'd have to crawl through barbed wire to get to the other side. I mean, like you said, this will wind up being good. The House of Black's just one of the most. It's like an enigma. It's like it's just like confusing to me. Like they're not a bad group. I like all three performers, but something just always seemed off about their connection with like the AEW universe, if that makes sense. And it's weird. It's like, it's hard for me to get into their feuds, but then like they have good matches, and I like Cope. I've always liked Cope. So I expect it to be good. I definitely wouldn't have had on my bingo card in 2024 where you're going to get Edge versus Aleister Black in AEW in a barbed wire steel cage match. But the other wrinkle to this is Malachi is trying to get, if he wins, then Copeland has to like bow down to him. Yeah, like, essentially, I guess bow down to him essentially.
He has to acknowledge House of Black.
Right. Yeah, I guess that's what we're trying to articulate. He needs to acknowledge them basically. There was another term I was going to use and it's on the tip of my tongue and I can't think of it. But yeah, I mean, so do you think here, given the circumstances, so it's a long shot. I actually think I saw our boy Justin Whang tweet this last night. Now that I'm thinking about it, shout out to Whang. Check that interview out if you missed it last week. Is this now now about a good time to bring Gangrel in for Edge? Like, because like he's talked about that in recent interviews about how I believe with the Van Vliet interview, he was talking about how he had pitched Gangrel to be a part of the WrestleMania entrance when he did the Brood entrance, and the thing just essentially got shot down because the WWE management was like, no one's going to remember that, and Edge was like, everyone's going to remember that. What are you talking about? But they didn't want to fight it. Like, do you think that that's maybe where something like this might be heading? Is like Edge is going to need his own like dark group to battle the House of Black, or like do you think he eventually joins the House of Black or anything like that? I mean, just throwing ideas out there.
I wouldn't be shocked to see a Gangrel appearance. They brought him in before. He came in with the Young Bucks and the Hardys when they were feuding. So it's not like Gangrel is not been in AEW. AEW clearly acknowledges Gangrel and plays off that kind of history. I could see a Gangrel appearance. I don't need spooky Adam Copeland and with a spooky group. Like Kyle O'Reilly came out to save him. Clearly didn't care that much because it took him forever to get out there before he got laid out and everything. He was teaming with Mark Briscoe and Eddie Kingston. Obviously, Eddie is out. Mark Briscoe seemingly does not care to help this man either. So Copeland doesn't seem like he's got too many friends back there. He's now doing weird stuff with blood coming out of his mouth. Spooky Copeland I'm not the biggest Copeland fan in the world anyway, but spooky Copeland just does nothing for me. This was so predictable when it all started too, of like, oh yeah, he's gonna do the crazy eye. He doesn't have hair to pull anymore, but going to that place you don't want me to go. Now you've pushed me too far. Now we've got to do a barbed wire steel cage match. It's like, all right, dude, I get it. Fine.
Dude, I mean, if he's outnumbered by the House of Black, he may need to assemble a Judgment Day type group and then, go from there. Because remember, everyone, he founded the Judgment Day, which everyone forgets because the group has changed so much. It didn't work at all while he was there, which is the ironic thing. It's like you would think that like an Edge-led stable would have been like a hit, and it just wasn't. And then once he like left, I mean, it took a long time. Judgment Day's been around now for, at least 2 years.
2 years, yeah.
Yeah. 2 years. So I mean, good for them that where they're at. It looks like Carlito is like kind of trying to join or whatever. But I'm joking about that, by the way. I don't think that Edge should create a new Judgment Day in AEW, but I'm interested to see where that goes. But like we both mentioned, I think the actual match between the two of them will be very good. And I don't expect it to like step on the toes of Anarchy in the Arena, really, mainly because with Anarchy in the Arena, you have such like a giant canvas to work with. You know what I mean? Like it's limitless. Hangman was riding a horse. You know what I mean? Like they can think of stuff outside of barbed wire. Yeah, even if they wind up using barbed wire, there's going to be a lot more than just that in Anarchy in the Arena. So
I probably wouldn't use barbed wire and anarchy in the arena after already doing it with a full barbed wire steel cage match. I would maybe have like the cage be lowered during that match too, and then play into it. It like trying to trap people in. Like have the Elite be like 4-on-1 with Darby Allin, and then in the ring, and then tell them to like lower the cage so we can just beat this dude up for a little while. You can do something like that, but otherwise, I would not try to play more with barbed wire when we're already doing a full-on barbed wire steel cage match. It'll be fine. Malachi took the one ring to rule them all last night. Gollum out here. I guess he's gonna throw Copeland's wedding ring into a goblet of fire or a volcano. Are you frozen or am I frozen? Okay, Jensen's frozen. Now he's. Look at this. We have dual Stephen Jensens.
Yeah, I don't know. I have no idea how that's never happened before. I literally both of my I have a browser up with the. Am I coming through on audio twice? I'm gonna mute this other mic just in case, but I'll let go on. Let me know, everyone in the chat, like if I sound.
You sound fine on my end.
Okay, dude, I don't know what just happened. I keep a browser up with just our conversation, like the screen of us talking with the chat, and then I have one screen below with like Twitter open and our DMs and stuff that I can look up, and both web browsers literally just close for no reason and then reopen. I've never seen that happen before. Give me just a second to pull our interview up. You guys might see this for just a second.
Just pull it up when okay, go ahead.
Okay, well, it's all right. I'll do it at the end. I want to make sure it works, but that's okay. We'll deal with that later. Sorry, guys. I think I'm back.
Okay. So what I was saying is Copeland has one ring to rule them all because he took Malachi has one ring to rule them all because he took Copeland's wedding ring. And I guess he should turn it into like a chain. I guess it'd be a small chain because it's not like a big wedding ring or anything. He should wear it as a chain though.
Yeah. Like put it in like on a necklace. Shawn Michaels used to do that.
Yeah.
This version of Shawn Michaels used to wear a ring around his little necklace.
All right. Or just melt it down into, I don't know, nothing.
Like an impulsive chain. You ever seen the chain that Logan Paul traded with Aaron Carter? Rest in peace, Aaron Carter. Yeah, Aaron. That's a whole other story. Anyway,
that's not saying. Does the winner have to?
A little bit.
Does the winner have to leave the cage? I don't know how it's going to work. I know the joke is that Malachi is not taking the pin, and that's why they're doing a barbed wire steel cage match. So it's whoever leaves. But I feel like the barbed wire is to prevent people from leaving. That's the whole point.
Yes.
Of it. So unless you're walking out the door, it feels like Malachi either wins or he's gonna dispel all the jokes and take the L. No, it'd be funny if he wins. Like, he just won because he didn't want to lose.
Yeah, that'd be crazy. I feel like I'm always gonna call him Edge. Probably. I feel like Adam Copeland should probably win. But like you said, that's the entire point of the barbed wires. I mean, that would be a really lame finish for a barbed wire steel cage match. If the winner just walked out the front
they should just turn the lights off, and then when they come back on, Buddy and Brody are in the ring, and then they can easily beat up Copeland. Or how about they turn the lights off, and then when they come back on, Malachi's he's escaped the cage, then he wins.
That would be a bad finish, I think.
Why?
Because we wouldn't even see what happened for the person to win. But I mean, I'm not saying that would actually. Yeah, so that's how you protect everybody.
Well, I mean, that's what the lights off gimmick is all about. You turn the lights off, you turn it back on, somebody's in the ring. You turn the lights off, you turn it back on, somebody's out of the ring. That's the whole point of it. So that's what they should do in this match. They should turn the lights off, turn them on. All of House of Black is in the ring. They beat up Copeland. Blah, blah, blah. He's all laid out. He's destroyed. Lights off, lights on. They're all outside of the ring. Malachi's the winner. I just booked a great finish.
there you go. That could be it. And trust me, I'm very familiar with the lights off, lights on thing. You know, a man that I have grown to. There's one person that I've been watching in the wrestling industry for, I mean, pretty much my entire life, and I was never really that big of a fan until recently. Like, I was never really that into the Undertaker. I was never really a huge fan of his. I was always like, yeah, Sting's way better than the Undertaker. Like, I was never into like the goth gimmick. I like the Ministry of Darkness stuff a little bit back in like the late 90s, but for the most part, the Undertaker was really never my jam. You know, I liked him during the streak and stuff, and he had some pretty good matches, especially with Shawn Michaels and stuff like that. But like, I finally gained real respect for him when the lights went off at WrestleMania 40 and came back on, and he was there to save Cody Rhodes. So the Undertaker, you know, I got to give him a lot of credit nowadays. So if we're going to talk lights off, lights on, and then back off again, he's there and he's gone. WrestleMania 40 main event, the best one of all time.
Undertaker was so nonchalant about that. He couldn't even like put on the Undertaker gear. He's like, my beanie, my hoodie. I'm just old Mark out here helping Cody Rhodes. Couldn't even be bothered to go Undertaker. It sucked.
Well, he claims that he was, because there's pictures of him like watching the show from a box. Like,
yeah, he claims he got texted to like 2 hours before the main event and was like, all right, we need you, brother.
Yeah. And that's probably, unless, I mean, I don't know how legitimate this is, but everyone has been saying, and there's been reports and stuff about Stone Cold Steve Austin was supposed to have that spot. That's what everyone was expecting. We were all expecting the glass to break and have Austin and The Rock face off and see The Rock eat a stunner. And all. I get it. We all had fantasy booked that in our own heads. I was right there with you. But if Steve Austin didn't want to play ball, or he wanted more money, or whatever the circumstances were that he didn't want to go out there and do that, screw that dude. The Undertaker did it, and he's immortalized for me forever for being the guy to do that. So, yeah, dude, Steve Austin, I could talk all about him right now, but I'm not going to. But that guy cares so much about the perception of his like character that he overthinks it so much. And maybe it's all just a money thing. I don't know, but I'm kind of like,
when did this turn into shooting on Steve Austin?
It turned into shooting on Steve Austin because that was his WrestleMania spot that he either didn't want, either because of money or because of creative, or maybe a combination of both. And it's like, dude, at this stage of your life and your career, like, go out there, do it, get the pop, get paid. Like, come on, man. Like, I don't know. Maybe he just wasn't. I mean, but we can't. Do you think it was supposed to be him and he didn't want to do it, and then they went to the Undertaker last minute?
I have no idea, because Steve Austin's not commented a single word on this. So I have no idea what it was supposed to be. Do I think it would have been better with Steve Austin? Yes. Do I know if they asked Austin? Do I know if they negotiated with Austin? No, because nobody's asked. And he hasn't commented on it. Triple H hasn't commented on it. Nobody said anything. So I'm not going to sit here and bury Steve Austin because
I'm going to bury him. I'm going to bury him. Because we all knew it should have been him.
But what if they didn't ask him?
Well, if they didn't ask him, then I take it all back.
Like, you're over here just burying this man, and we have no idea if they even asked him.
Kane Horn claims this Stephen Jensen guy has weekly terrible takes on wrestling. Do you keep coming back every week for my bad takes? Maybe you like Jeremy. Maybe that's why.
Oh, that shouldn't be happening.
Yeah. Name some of my bad takes off in the comments. I'll read those out for everybody. Sorry, go ahead, Jeremy.
All of them.
Yeah, I'll read all of them. Okay. Yeah, a lot of people agree with them.
You just turned shooting on Steve Austin out of nowhere. That was insane.
Yeah, I had to do it. To be fair, he doesn't like Jeremy. That's true.
Jeremy doesn't like Jeremy most of the time. All right. I can't believe you just went off on Steve Austin like that. That caught me completely off guard. It's all because you think he was supposed to help Cody, and then he didn't help Cody.
Yeah.
But you don't even know if he was asked.
You're right. I don't. I'm heavily speculating.
You're giving way too much credit to Cody here, by the way. Like, all these people are great because they helped Cody. Thank you for them. Why aren't you thanking Triple H? Cody thanked Triple H.
Oh, I think Triple H plenty.
That's unfortunate.
I think Triple H big time on this show when the day after, or our show after WrestleMania.
That's unfortunate. Yeah, I'm with Chi-Town Spurs. Like, if they did ask Austin and he's like, all right, give me this much money, and they're like, no, never mind. Fuck that, give him the money. Why are you against wrestlers making money?
What? When did I say I was against wrestlers making money?
You just buried Austin for being like, oh, if it was money, he should have just taken whatever WWE gave him to come out and help Cody. Why shouldn't WWE, a billion-dollar company who touts all of these, we made $300 billion this month. They can't give Steve Austin an extra $1 million?
I mean,
Steve Austin should
I'm not against
their little lowball offer. Sorry, he's not a stand-up for WWE guy like old Mark is.
I guess that would be the trade-off would be what if I don't know what they gave the Undertaker, to be fair, to do that. I don't know.
Taker probably, he was already going to be there anyway. He was there for his little one.
Yeah, but he still got paid to do that.
Sure,
he didn't do that for free.
Undertaker he's just happy to be part of things. Undertaker's a big old corporate guy now. He's just going to take whatever. Oh, thank you, Paul. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. I appreciate it so much. When's my podcast going to be on the network? How's my show going to be on the network? Thank you, Paul. Undertaker.
Yeah.
Get this guy out.
Cena was there. You know, they got the legends. They got the legends who wanted to be there.
Well, if they wanted the biggest legend of all time, they should have paid him more. I ain't begrudging that man for wanting more money off of this.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure he got paid a lot to that Kevin Owens match. But it's like, if you came back for that, you had your awesome, huge send-off, your final match, like, you could have been the one to pass. I'm just salty about it because I wanted him to be a part of that and be one of the guys to pass the torch to Cody. I really thought that would have been perfect for him. But you don't want to do it. But here's the thing. Once again,
you don't know that. You still don't know that.
I still don't know that. And there's a chance, to be fair, there's a chance next year at WrestleMania, because we're going to get The Rock versus Cody probably at Mania next year. There's a chance the glass breaks next year in that match. So I'm just saying, like, I was disappointed that Steve Austin didn't do it. I don't know why he didn't do it. I don't know if he was even offered it, but if he was offered it and just was like, I don't want to be a part of this, that's disappointing to me. That's all.
I'm not
burying Steve Austin.
I don't know.
I mean, exaggerating.
I don't know.
I'll wear my Austin 316 shirt on the show next week, everybody. Don't worry.
I don't know. I'm what the chat is. Clearly, he liked Kevin Owens. That's also true.
Yeah, he did. He did like Kevin Owens. And there was a lot of history there. Like, I remember Owens going on Steve Austin's podcast like 10 years ago and talking to him about, the ways of hitting the stunner, and Austin giving him like tips on like hitting the move and stuff. Like, he basically passed it off to him. Like,
maybe Kevin Owens paid him enough to where he could get those tips.
Dude, but okay, so are we gonna act like Steve Austin doesn't have like a known history of like, and I'm not saying it's even necessarily wrong, but he does have a history of caring so much about his creative direction that he's
good
the company multiple times.
Good.
That's good.
Yes.
I mean, maybe. Okay. All right.
More people should stand up against, hey, just go out there and do this. No, if it doesn't work for me, brother, it doesn't work for me, brother. All these people, this is what I hate about, I love Bryan Danielson, but stand up and be like, no, you know what? This is stupid. This is a dumbass idea. I'm not going to do it. More people should act like that. You want Austin go out there against Brock Lesnar in a cold match and be like, hey, go out there and just lose for King of the Ring. No, that's stupid. Wait, what was the other time he walked out? You said history. Well, it was that one. What else?
Well, so if you listen to Jim Ross and Conrad, occasionally they'll talk about like different scenarios. I don't have them all right in front of me. And I don't think this had to do with the WrestleMania thing with Scott Hall, because I think that was on Scott Hall, the reason they changed that. But initially Scott Hall was supposed to beat Steve Austin at WrestleMania. But I've heard many times about how paranoid Steve Austin was, about how, and listen, I rightfully so to some degree, right? Because he was the top guy, and when he was on top, he was the most popular wrestler in the company, in the industry. There was like a 3-year period where Steve Austin was the biggest thing wrestling's ever had, like for that time period. I'm not taking that away from him at all, but there was also like a paranoia there of like sliding down the card at all. And once you would see like, well, they're going to put someone else up here, like he didn't want to be a part of it. He always wanted to be, and I'm not saying that's necessarily bad, but it's why I think we didn't get more from him. And then he got injured. I understand that. And he stepped away. And I thought it was cool as hell that he came back and he wrestled Kevin Owens. The only thing I'm salty about in this whole situation is that I thought I'm assuming, which isn't a good thing to do. Okay. I'm making an ass out of you and me by assuming. Okay. I get it. But like, I just feel like he was going to be part of WrestleMania, and then he decided not to be. That was I think it's pretty clear Undertaker was like a last minute thing. If he was called 2 hours, he's texted during the show to be like, hey, we're going to need you actually.
But I think he's exaggerating. Undertaker even said like he found out he was contacted Tuesday. Of potentially being needed for the match. So it's not like it was a literal last minute thing. He was clued in on everything Tuesday. By Thursday, they had it all laid out for him of what he might be doing. And then, they said 2 hours. He got texted and then he had to go down there. Let's look at the narrator here. A guy who has been in the business for 40 years and trying to spice up the story. He literally does a one-man show where I'm not going to say he's lying throughout the show, but you got to exaggerate the truth on these shows to make it more entertaining. So I feel like he's exaggerating the truth a little bit, but also it wasn't just, he just found out that on 2 hours before the main event that he was going to be needed. No, he knew Tuesday that he might be possible in this main event.
Yeah. We've gone way too far on this. Throwing
shots at the greatest of all time, Steve Austin, for no reason.
I was just making a comment that has taken on way more than I expected it to. So yeah, sorry, y'all.
I wasn't going to let it slide. That's why. I have to apologize. That was a good discussion.
Yeah, it was. I'll take the L on that one.
Yeah, you're here. Cody won and everything. You're still salty over Steve Austin not showing up.
My point was that The Undertaker had the greatest lights off, lights on, lights back off moment of all time. And the only reason we got it, I felt like, was because we didn't get the glass shattering. That was my entire point. And now we're here. Yeah.
You know why we didn't, you know why
still going on. I wanted this to go on for 3 seconds and now we're still talking about it. Sorry, go ahead.
You know why the glass didn't shatter and instead we got old Taker out there? Because Steve Austin wasn't going to kiss Triple H's ass. He wasn't going to go out there be like, thank you, Paul, for bringing me out here. Yeah, we got our moment. Let's all celebrate Cody. This is fantastic. Thanks, Triple H. Welcome to the Triple H era. Steve Austin ain't about that bullshit. That's why.
That's fair.
I need to finish the story. In the WWE, the story never finishes.
Cody Rhodes is facing Logan Paul in Saudi Arabia.
Y'all ready for some bad takes? This is going to be the best match in the history of the WWE. How about that? What do y'all think about that in the comments? Go ahead. Best match of all time. Come on. Am I trolling or am I being for real?
I feel like you're being for real, honestly.
W's or L's in the chat. Come on, everybody. If you want this out of me this morning, you got it. Jeremy just took a discussion that should have been the length of me saying something, him being like, yo, fuck you, Steve Austin didn't get paid enough, or they didn't ask him. We could have just moved on right from there. It could have been a 3-second conversation.
I I was going to give you a chance to respond. I wasn't just going to step on your take and be like, no, you're wrong. Let's move on. That's not very fair.
It would have been better. It would have been better if you would have done that.
Will is correct, by the way. That's the greatest of all time.
Yeah. See the thing, yeah. I mean, that was way better than it had any right to be, for sure. Like
everyone knew it was going to be great. You kidding me? Sami Zayn, legitimately the greatest professional wrestler of all time. I'm not even joking. Sami Zayn can do anything and everything. And Johnny Knoxville, Johnny Knoxville's still beefing with Sami Zayn. Rules.
Yeah. It's good for him. All right. So I think that Logan Paul and Cody Rhodes, obviously it's going to generate a lot of attention, and it'll be a really good match. Like people, yeah, all of Logan's matches have been good. And like, I obviously I expect Cody to have a great performance. Like, I mean, people can say whatever they want about Logan as a human being. All right. I've followed the guy's career long enough to know like about the controversies, and there's still stuff literally right now. If you go on YouTube and type in Logan Paul, there's going to be stuff from like this week, like beef between him and like his former co-hosts on Impulsive. And like, you're going to find crypto scams and zoo tokens and dink doink and all this. I mean, there's a lot of reasons to dislike Logan Paul. All right. I get it. But if we're talking strictly professional wrestler on the WWE television, Logan Paul, he does great promos. He creates a lot of heat and interest in his matches, good reactions, and his matches are good. He's an athletic guy. His match at WrestleMania, I thought he did great against Owens and Randy Orton. He's had great performances. He had a great one-on-one performance for the world title or the WWE Universal title a while back with Roman Reigns, and he was still really new when he had that match. He's only gotten better. I think that this is a really sellable match. Like, you put this on the home screen of Peacock, and people who don't even follow wrestling are going to see it and be like, oh, damn, Logan Paul's on this. And even if you don't know Cody Rhodes, it's like you might be interested. Or, I mean, at this point, Cody has gotten to the point where, like, is he a Stone Cold Steve Austin level? No, he isn't. That's where I'm going to give Austin his credit. When Austin was on top, he was the biggest superstar they have ever had. Bigger than The Rock, bigger than Cena, bigger than Hogan, bigger than all of them. For his period on top, he was the best they've ever had.
Bow down and take less money so we could help Cody at WrestleMania.
Exactly. And thanks for agreeing with me finally on that. But I think that like Cody is getting to a point where like people that aren't wrestling fans still, like, even like people I work with know that I'm into wrestling, and they know that I'm a Cody Rhodes fan. Like, some of them have like, we've talked just randomly about stuff. And like, when WrestleMania season was coming around, they were asking me a little bit about it. And I was like, oh yeah, this guy, Cody, went to high school together, so he's like local to here, because I work out of the Atlanta area. So I was telling them about it and stuff. And now like they've started noticing, they're like, oh dude, I see Cody on this thing. I see Cody on that thing. Like, they've actually, like, now that they are kind of aware of him, now they're starting to see him on like their social media and recognizing who he is and knowing more about the WWE. And they're creating all these new fans and stuff. And I think that it's interesting because we're going to actually have a guy, Deporticus, who has a YouTube channel. He's going to be on the Creator Spotlight in a couple of weeks. And he's a new wrestling fan as of like about the last year or so. He started watching at WrestleMania 39 and became like a really big fan. And goes to like the live shows and watches all the Raws and SmackDowns and stuff now. And him and some of the others that I've noticed that have gotten into wrestling recently that have been doing YouTube videos and stuff, one of the things they all mention is like, they either didn't expect Logan Paul to be there, or like they didn't expect him to be good, even though they knew he was going to be on the show. And then they see him and they're like, oh my God, like this is actually his calling. Like, he's actually really good at it. You can hate him for all these other reasons, but like, he's actually good on the WWE show. And Cody is Cody. I mean, I think so. They're going to have a great match. There's going to get a lot of social media buzz. And have they made it official that it's title versus title, US title versus?
They can't seem to figure out what they're doing on that. They're saying champion versus champion. Cody's saying for all the gold, but they're not hammering it home that it's title for title and the winner does get all the gold. Cody feels like he's trying to let everybody know that's what it is. WWE feels non-committal on that part of it.
Well, I mean, they'd be pigeonholing the U.S. title, obviously, if they put it on Cody. And they're like, Cody would have to win. Like, he's not losing the title this fast to Logan.
Yeah.
So, but it also makes Cody a Grand Slam champion, which I guess is like the whole point of why you would even want Cody to have that title. But that said, I expect Cody to win the match, of course. But I mean, I was surprised that they announced the match, though. Like, I wasn't expecting this to be Cody's next title match. But once they announced it, I was hyped for it. I think it makes all the sense in the world. And it's another one similar to AJ from the sense of like it's a predictable result. Like, you expect Cody to retain the title, but he's going to have another really good, really interesting match. And this one, I think, once again, because it's Logan, it'll generate a lot of social media and like outside media interest. So, yeah, I'm obviously all for this one.
What do you think of Cody pushing to win all of these titles? You want to talk about pull and going into business for yourself, and that doesn't work for me, brother.
Yeah.
He won the world title. He might win the US title, all just to be number one in the PWI 500.
He's just doing it just to be number one in the PWI 500. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Is that a rhetorical question? I can't even really answer that. I mean, obviously, it's more.
I'm just asking for your thoughts on it. As the biggest Cody fan that I know, and certainly,
I mean, do I hope he become? I mean, I hope he's.
No. He's gonna win it this year. Like he's only doing all of this to be the PWI number one in PWI 500. He doesn't actually care about all this other stuff. It's just all to be PWI number one.
No, obviously that's not the main point, Jeremy, but I do think that he'll be happy to accomplish that. I think that's if he had like how he made that list of opponents he wanted when he left the WWE, I think PWI 500 would be one of the boxes he would want to check before the end of his career. So I think it'll be cool for him.
Yeah, he's already said that. Like he said this like years ago. He's like, I really want to be PWI 500 number one. And the only way to do that, like, it's kind of a kayfabe list. So,
right,
beating Roman Reigns, winning the world title, winning the US title, like, you're not going to be able to deny him after all of this. He might win the tag titles just on top of it. He wants to beat R-Truth really bad. So he might just pin R-Truth. So he just have all these titles just so he can be PWI number one.
I love the R-Truth stuff, by the way. I love that he's making callbacks and references to the fact that he lost R-Truth like 1,000 times when he was Stardust. And he did that picture, like putting the belt on him and looking like kind of menacing. People forget he won the tag titles again when he came back with Jey Uso. It was obviously really short-lived, but
that's true. So yeah, he's already that would fall within the calendar year. That was the start of it. He's like, I need these tag team titles. So yeah, if he wins the US title, like he's gonna be it anyway because he beat Roman and he like really hasn't lost. So he's gonna already win. He won the Rumble as well. He's gonna be. But does he like need to add the US title on top of all that?
No, he doesn't. I mean, I'll keep it real. He doesn't. But like, I mean, if it's title versus title, he needs to win it because he's not going to lose the world title to Logan. So,
Janice sent us super chat, says world heavyweight title will be seen as legit by the end of the year. World heavyweight title has the best feuds and storylines surrounding it. Looking forward. People say storytelling is everything. Some will grow tired of the WWE title's predictability and mega runs. I don't necessarily disagree. I mean,
yeah, I do like the mega runs. Like, I like the idea of long-term champions because it means so much when someone finally beats that person, right? But the world heavyweight titles, it's just in a tough spot for perception. But it's in a better spot than it was. And what I mean by that is, like, when it was initially created, it was obviously done just because they needed a world title on Raw, and like Roman was part-time and he had consolidated both. Like, he already was the Universal and WWE champion. So it's like you already had both titles for both shows. And then they created essentially a third title because Roman had two of them technically. And then eventually that became one. I know this all sounds very confusing, but y'all follow what I'm saying here. So it was really on Seth to make a title that meant absolutely nothing mean something over that year-long span. And he did the best that he possibly could, I think. And he dealt with injury and stuff as well. But like he did the best he could. Also, he was coming off of 3 losses to Cody before winning this championship. So it was also even a little bit of an uphill battle perception-wise there, even because it's like this guy's lost a whole bunch on pay-per-view. Now he's the world champion of this title belt that's brand new. Like, what's this really actually mean, if anything? So I give Seth credit for making it mean something over that year. I think that Drew McIntyre has made the title seem way more important. I know his title run was only like 5 minutes and Damian Priest was the current champion, but because of Drew's want for that title to get it back, because I think Drew is, if we're going to split the two shows up, I think Drew is by far like the best thing that Monday Night Raw has going for it on their roster. And he's fixated on 2 big things: CM Punk, who's the most famous person on the brand, and then you have the world title. Those are the 2 things that he's interested in. Damian Priest is still hard for me to like view him as a world champion, but it's starting to click a little bit more for me now. Mainly because, and this is like most Money in the Bank briefcase holders that cash in, I got so used to seeing Damian lose while he had that briefcase. And now it's like, now all of a sudden you're the champion after cashing in on a guy who just won the title. But the way he presents himself and the way that he is on the microphone and with his look and stuff, like I'm open to giving him this opportunity to be the champion. Like, I'm not against Damian Priest. But I do think that Drew should ultimately beat him for the title again, because I think Drew should be the champion of that show, if all that makes sense. But I'm agreeing with the super chat to a degree. I don't necessarily think it's better than the WWE Championship that Cody holds, but I think that the perception of this title is that it is the second best title in the company, which I think is like essentially the point of the title, if that makes sense.
I think I agree with the story, super chats, in that right now Cody, it just feels like Cody's winning everything. And like, I understand that. You're not going to take the title off him too quickly. How they got to the AJ match was just a tournament, fine. How they got to Logan Paul was just Logan Paul. Okay. I do like that Priest, it feels like they're actually telling stories with the overall title centered around McIntyre as well, Jey Uso being involved, CM Punk being on the peripheral as well. Like, it feels like there's a little bit more meat there with that title than just here's Cody's next kind of super fight type of thing. So I see what the super chat is saying. I don't think the perception's ever going to be that title's bigger than Cody's title, though, because Cody's title, one, it came from Roman, so that's always has felt like title. 2, that title was introduced because Roman just wasn't showing up on that show. It's got a ways to go before people see it quite on that level. But I can see how people are saying that. Adam's first saying the Raw after Mania Rock segment pretty much told me you don't need to worry about Cody until Dwayne is back, which is a bit of an issue. I think Cody could and should lose the title before then. He probably wins it back before you get to WrestleMania and you get to The Rock and everything. But I see what Chi-Town Spurs is saying there, is it does feel like, until Rock comes back, he's probably not going to lose this title. I think there is a story where he can lose the title before then, get it back before WrestleMania, so you can still do the Rock stuff. But if he's just going to hold it for a year, I mean, fine. You got to give me something more interesting than Logan Paul, though. Sorry to Logan. I know you're a big fan.
Yeah. See, I disagree, because like, I think that I agree and I disagree. What I mean by this is I understand the perception of like The Rock that's the big feud. That's the big match. We all know that's eventually going to happen. They've already teased it the night after WrestleMania stuff, and WrestleMania, the build and everything. I mean, like The Rock and Cody is going to happen for the world title. And it'll probably be world title versus People's Championship, like title versus title. That's the whole reason I think The Rock is even.
Fucking title.
I don't disagree, but I'm just saying, like, why else would they even create that title belt for him to carry?
It does rule
so
that Rock just created his own title just to step on Ali's Hall of Fame induction. Like, yeah, Muhammad Ali's going in. Anyway, I'm the people's champ because Muhammad Ali called me that, and here's my own title for it. Fantastic.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean,
Saying,
you cut off for a second. Go ahead.
Okay. Jen is saying Cody should lose to Money in the Bank if you want to spice up his run. Yeah, Money in the Bank still 2 months away. I don't know. I don't have a favorite for Money in the Bank. I know people are thinking LA Knight. That obviously, I think LA Knight's cashing in on Cody to like do a cheap steal from him. That's not going to go over too well with fans. I don't know who you maybe put that briefcase on who can kind of do a cheap steal from Cody to get the belt off of him for the time being. And then like Cody would get a rematch and Cody should probably win the rematch. So it's tough how they're going to book that.
Yeah.
I think LA Knight could actually win the thing and then step to Priest.
I actually like the idea of that a lot. If LA Knight were to win, I'm not against LA Knight winning the Money in the Bank. I think that him stepping to Priest or to, McIntyre or to Punk, even depending on like when this hell happens and who's the champion and how things play out. But like, but I disagree with like the idea that what Cody is doing is unimportant or uninteresting just because we know that the Rock match is in the background and that's going to happen eventually. Because I mean, regardless of like the hype level, I think that Cody versus AJ was an awesome main event. And I think that Cody versus Logan is going to be awesome, and it's going to do nothing but just keep, establishing Cody as a worthy successor to Roman as the new champion going forward. So like they're picking good opponents for him to have good matches against that I'm interested in. Like I've always been an AJ fan since like the early 2000s, late 90s actually. And Logan, I've talked about him plenty, how much I respect him in the wrestling business. So I had no problem with what they're doing with Cody at the moment. But once again, I do understand what y'all are saying though, as far as like, yeah, but it kind of feels like Cody's just killing time until The Rock comes back. But it's like, yeah, but at least we know, like at the end of the, whatever, the end of the rainbow or whatever, the gold is like The Rock's there. Like, you gotta wait a little while.
Right. That's months and months away though. Like, I don't think it's great to just kill time between.
Well, I don't think they're just killing time. I'm just saying, like, I think people are saying that, but like they really aren't doing that. They aren't just killing time, because I don't think you can say Cody versus AJ was just killing time because it was a great match. I don't think Logan versus Cody is going to be just killing time.
Like these are good matches, but the winner doesn't seem in doubt. And look, I've said this. Some people think it's facetious, maybe a little bit, but like, I don't care about good matches. I would like to be invested in a story between this stuff. Like I thought AJ's promo, the go home promo, and Cody's part of that for Backlash was really, really good. That got me more interested in the match. I'd like to see Cody in like an actual kind of story instead of here's your challenger of the month, because that doesn't feel anything to me.
What also part of that isn't, I don't want to put blame really anywhere, but like we've had like pay-per-view after pay-per-view after pay-per-view. Also, it's not like they've had like a whole lot of time to like build these. Really, the only thing they'd be able to do is like run back AJ and Cody again if you wanted like a real story. I feel like, because it's like we had WrestleMania, then we had Backlash, now we have King and Queen of the Ring. It's not like we've had like months and months at a time to build these stories before each pay-per-view.
That's a cop-out. With these pay-per-views, when they are, you can
want a 3-week build with him and Logan. I mean, like, what's the big difference?
They can.
I know enough about Logan. I know enough about Cody. They're both super famous. Go out there and wrestle.
Very excited for that.
I am. There's plenty of people. Millions of people are.
I don't know about millions.
Millions of people are.
I know you're excited for it.
Yeah, for sure.
King and Queen of the Ring. Who's your picks?
Man, it's hard to go against Gunther, isn't it? He seems like kind of the obvious choice, but I feel like the obvious choice might be who I got to go with here, because we got Gunther and Jey Uso in the semis, and then either it's going to be the winner of Orton and Carmelo versus the winner of LA Knight and Tama Tonga. So I just don't see any of the four of them winning this thing. Like, I don't think it benefits Orton at all to be the king of the ring. I think it'd be cool for Carmelo. I just don't think that they'll do it. I doubt it's Tama Tonga. I could see LA Knight maybe, but I could see it even more so being like he gets all the way to the finals, but like he just Gunther's just too much for him. I'm also not against the idea of Jey Uso doing it at all. Like, he's super over. That Yeet stuff and his entrance and everything is like, he's doing great work. But my official pick for the men's is going to be Gunther. What about you?
I think Gunther and Orton is probably the finals. I predicted that a couple weeks ago. Actually, when the brackets first came out, I predicted that. And I still think that makes the most sense. Joel Pearl mentioned the idea of maybe Jey Uso and Tama Tonga in the main event. And Tama wins because you can play off. Like, there's an actual story there. And you can play off of that. I'm not mad at that. People don't like Jey Uso for some reason.
I don't know why that is. I think he's doing great work, especially for a guy who was like pigeonholed as pigeonholed, I guess would be the word, I guess. But he was a tag team guy for so long, and he broke out as a legit single star. So
he doesn't do enough moves for people.
I mean, I'll agree that like his match against Jimmy at WrestleMania was probably the worst WrestleMania match of the whole show.
He admitted that much.
Crazy. Yeah, I mean, that was a bummer. So I'll agree with that, but like, I mean, it's also hard to argue when you see a guy come out to the ring and like the whole crowd is moving like a life force together with their yeets and their phone lights and all that stuff. Like, he's definitely over. But yeah, I'm going to go with Gunther officially.
Okay. Then what about the women's side?
The women's side, I'm pretty torn on. We know Io and Lyra Valkyria are the semis already. I don't think either of them are going to win. So initially, my thoughts were Nia. And I still am pretty high on that idea. But it's Nia versus Jade. So it's tough because like, do you beat Jade now? But like, if you do, it kind of would make sense to do now if you're gonna have her lose. I don't think they're gonna do Jade versus Bianca because it's Bianca versus Tiffany. So you could potentially get Jade versus Bianca, but I don't think they're gonna do that because they just won the tag titles. I don't think there's really a point in having them wrestle each other. So, and I like Tiffany Stratton a lot. So on paper, I want to say Bianca for a lot of reasons, but it's like she's also one half of the tag champion. So like she doesn't really need it at the moment. None of those tag titles really mean a whole lot, unfortunately. But like I love Jade and Bianca, so I'm happy that like they're doing something. So my official prediction, I'm gonna say Nia Jax somehow gets this whole thing done. I'm gonna take Nia. What about you?
Okay. I'm not mad at Nia Jax. It feels like it's being set up for Jade to win. I've said before, I'm with Chi-Town Spurs I think you can have Jade take a loss in this tournament and it not be the end of the world for
That's
her.
Where I'm with that. That's kind of what I was saying as well. Like this isn't like, in that way, you're also not like tying her down to like the undefeated streak idea. Yeah.
Like, she's already one half of the women's tag team champions. I think you can have her lose to Nia. Maybe somebody interferes. I think you can have her lose to Bianca. Bianca just happens to be better than her right now. They're still the tag team champions. They show respect afterwards. Everything's fine. And set up down the line when the eventual split and turn happens that, Bianca was the first person to beat me. And then that's Jade can use that as fuel and motivation, or Bianca, maybe Bianca turns heel. Bianca can use that as fuel and motivation of like, I beat you, and people are still like, Jade Cargill this, Jade Cargill that. Like, I'm tired of that. So I think you can set something up with a Bianca victory over Jade, despite them being the tag team champion. So I would probably have Jade lose in this tournament. She's not people. I'm sure people will be like, oh, she's buried. Why are you doing this to her? Like, she'll be okay. Promise you she'll be okay if she loses in this tournament.
Yeah, people were saying that about Ilya Dragunov as well. About him, people getting outraged about him losing to Jey Uso, and like, I've been covering Ilya Dragunov for over 5 years because I covered when NXT UK was a show. I covered every episode of that, the entire run of the series over on the Fightful Select Weekender podcast. So like, I'm super familiar with how good Ilya Dragunov is and his potential in the company. And so like, am I thrilled to see him lose so soon after being called up to the main roster? Not necessarily, but I also recognize how over Jey Uso is. Like, it's not like Ilya lost to some scrub. He lost to a guy who's legitimately main eventing shows on a consistent basis for the WWE. Like, it's not like, you know what I mean? So he didn't take some giant. And here's the thing. I bet you we don't see Dragunov lose again for a while. Like, he'll rack up a lot of wins on your TV screen from here for the next handful of months, probably as they build him up to his next thing. So I think he'll be just fine. And then also when it comes to Jade losing, like, who better to lose to than Nia? You know, like, they're matched up with one another. You can do it in a way where Nia cheats or whatever. And she already has like the level of like credibility as far as like, you know, the perception of Nia. Like, she doesn't lose very often. And I got to give Nia a lot of credit for, I was not a fan of hers during her initial WWE run, like when she punched Becky in the face and all that stuff. But I have to give her credit. She has improved, at least in my opinion. I think she's improved pretty significantly. She's been having some pretty good matches and performances. She's moving around better. Like, I'll give her credit where it's due. So like, if she's going to be the one to be the first person to beat Jade and it's in the Queen of the Ring tournament, I think that actually makes like all the sense in the world for everyone. So want to throw that out there too.
Yeah. Let's move on because I have to run here shortly.
Our product is what it is. We're going straight up the middle.
Hey, check out the interview Joel Parlow and I did with Billy Corgan. That's on FightfulOverbooked.com. New Japan Resurgence this past week. We've talked a little bit about it when in the Eddie Kingston injury. Very happy for Gabe Kidd. I think Gabe Kidd rules, him winning that title. Hopefully he is able to defend it in Japan and in America when they do more New Japan Strong shows in America. But the big story coming out of this, the Great Evil, he's going after the IWGP World Heavyweight title. He's going to win it at Dominion. He spray painted all black. Evil needs to be back on top in New Japan if they really want business to be up again.
Well, I'll let you to continue to elaborate on this because like I'm pretty much with everyone else where like I'm not a huge Evil fan. Like, I think when he won that IWGP World title, it was like the lowest interest I think anyone's like ever had in the company was like when he had that.
It was during the pandemic though. That's not fair to him.
Okay. Listen, you're right about that. I'll take half an L on that, okay? Not a full L, because I think even if that happened with every seat filled in these arenas, people still wouldn't have cared that Evil was the IWGP World Champion. Now, go ahead and explain to me why this is a great idea that Evil has attacked Jon Moxley and that he's going to be going for the world title again.
Because Evil 1 rules. 2, everyone is so caught up in this idea of the New Japan style. Have these 30-minute main event matches. Oh, banger, banger, banger. Cool move, cool move, cool move. Fuck all that. Okay? Evil comes out there with this slow plotting style. He does like 12-minute matches, a bunch of interference. That's the shit I'm talking about. Right there. Don't give me these 30-minute cool move matches. I can watch any independent promotion in the world and see all that. Evil is something different. And that's what people are really mad about. They can't accept that it's something different. They've gotten so used to the Okada style, the Omega style, the Ospreay style, even going back to AJ Styles, Nakamura. They've gotten so used to this style that they can't accept that Evil is out here doing something different than all of these guys. And they're like, oh, we don't like this. Bunch of dorks out here. That's why Evil is great.
That list you just mentioned, and then you put Evil's name on that list. One thing is not like the others.
Yeah, that's why he's rules.
You're right. I have no rebuttal. There's nothing I can add to that. I mean, he's definitely different. I will absolutely agree that Evil is definitely different than Will Ospreay and AJ Styles and Kenny Omega and Okada for sure. In Nakamura, he's definitely different than those guys for sure.
People can't accept it. People just want this same style. Whatever happened to liking different stuff, everybody? I can't wait for Evil versus Jon Moxley. It's going to be a great match. Evil is going to win.
I love Jon Moxley. That'd be wild.
He should win.
Yeah.
Then he should beat Okada at Forbidden Door.
Oh,
since Okada couldn't pass the torch to anybody on his way out. He had to beat everybody in trios matches.
We're going to bury Okada now. I think one offhand remark about Steve Austin potentially something or other that I just kind of whip up out of my ass, and then we're going to bury Okada. We're talking about
I respect
Evil's doing more for. Yeah.
No, I actually respect that Okada was like, no, I'm not putting anybody over on my way out. I'm just going to beat all these people. I respect that.
There you go. Fair enough.
All right. I look forward to Evil when he hopefully wins. He hopefully wins the IWGP.
Oh man, I think that's a bad idea. Well, I'll give New Japan credit for sticking with him though. Like I know they saw the feedback.
That is during the pandemic. What do these dorks know during the pandemic?
How much time do you have left? I'm usually the one who has to get out of here. I have extra time today.
Not long. I gotta go. What was the other? Oh, MLW. CozyMax won the MLW Tag Team titles. Satoshi Kojima is a champ.
Yes.
That's a choice. Sure.
Listen, I like Kojima. That's another one on my bingo card where, like, you know, he was the first. They recognize him as the first ever MLW World Champion. So he's the first ever 2-time MLW World Champion. And the title runs came 20 years apart. And now he's the first person to ever be the champ to hold the world title and the tag titles. They won the vacant titles, defeated the Second Gear Crew to win them. But yeah, I mean, shout out to Kojima. Like I like Kojima. I thought he had a good run in Impact like a couple years ago. Obviously a legend in his own right. He's been around forever. He just moves around a little slower because of his age, but still Kojima, still pretty cool. I would not have had him be the one to defeat Alex Kane for the world title. Like I think that was somewhat of a mistake. But that's just my own personal opinion. Like, I thought Alex Kane was doing a good job with that. I would like to see a longer title run for him, and I would like to see him lose to maybe more of like a younger, like up and coming talent for MLW. But Kojima eventually, I mean, what's probably going to happen is Kojima is probably going to put over Riddle. Like I think Riddle will probably wind up winning the world title. Like he's the one that makes probably the one that it seems to be that they're focusing on the most. But also on that show, we had Bad Dude Tito defeated Ricky Shane Page to win the Openweight Championship. So want to throw that out there too. I didn't expect that to happen, but Bad Dude Tito has had a great run so far in MLW since he's been doing that consistently. He's had really good showings at shows like Bloodsport. He's had really good showings on and stuff like that. RSP was out there doing his Raven cosplay with like the flannel tied around his waist and everything, with that whole feud he had with the Calling and Raven and all that stuff and Akira. But wanted to shout that out too. RSP had been our Openweight champion for quite a while. Didn't expect him to lose the show on the it was like the Lucha Azteca show. And it was in like a 6-minute match. Tito just came out, beat him straight up with like a pop-up Rikishi driver. It was a nice finish. But anyway, yeah, I just want to throw that out there too. So some big title changes. We got CozyMax as the MLW Tag Champions, Kojima now a champ along with the world title, and Bad Dude Tito is the Openweight champion, beating RSP.
I like the MLW shows because they're like 2 hours. This one didn't even start at 10 o'clock, but I guess they're on CMLL time.
You're right, though. It was a late show. It was a
late night. As New Japan started at 10, Rampage was at 10. It was a late night. All right.
Yes.
Let's get to our indie spotlight real quick if I can find the bumper for it. There we go.
I'm going to give a big motherfucking shout out.
KOBK, their One More show. We had Mo's on a couple weeks ago. It is now on IWTV. If anybody wants to go check that out. Speaking of good shows that are just very short, right up my alley. This was the No Ring show from KOBK. It's like an hour and 2 minutes. It's
not even. I think the runtime on IWTV is like 50 minutes. like right under just
I thought it was a
over
little
an
bit
hour.
longer than that. It went by very quickly, but I thought the runtime was a little bit longer. You could be right. Regardless, it's like an hour long, which is all we need out of wrestling. Short shows, hard-hitting matches. Your thoughts on the whole show, Jensen?
Yeah, this was great. This was right up my alley. For people who know me, I lived in Nashville for like 10 years before relocating back to Atlanta, and like so most of the performers excuse me on this show are are people that I've been following for a long time. And Mo is a good friend of the show. As Jeremy mentioned, we interviewed him again recently to preview this KOBK One More event. But yeah, just real quick, there was KOBK representation in pretty much every match here. It was 5 matches for this show. All were no ring matches. But essentially, most of them were like hardcore matches pretty much. And then the main event was like a death match. So we had Sean Campbell over Nick Iggy, Sean Campbell representing KOBK. We had Luther X representing KOBK over Totally Plastic Finesse. We had Brett Eisen, who's the leader of KOBK. He defeated Jameson Shook. Really cool finish with a cop killer through a door. I love the camera angle on that too. I'll give you all the finishes real quick. Sean Campbell beat Nick Iggy with a pile driver on a chair. Luther X beat Finesse with a curb stomp onto an open chair. We had Brett Eisen with a cop killer through a table on Jameson Shook. The only non-KOBK match was AJ Gray with an open challenge. Derek Neal accepted that challenge. That match was nuts. AJ took a superplex off of like a picnic table onto just like rocks and gravel. He did a swanton. He jumped off like a flight of stairs through a door doing a swanton. The finish was him jumping off the stage doing a moonsault just onto the ground. Like their quote unquote ring, because it was a no ring show, their quote unquote ring was like, it was like a yoga mat, basically, like one of those like mats that looks like big puzzle pieces that you put together that are like maybe like an inch thick. They had like 2 of those on the ground just to kind of land on. But most of the stuff was happening in rocks and gravel and stuff. So that was cool. And then the main event was Hardway Heater. They have him as Hardcore Heater on Cage Match. That's wrong Cage Match. I got to fix that. Hardway Heater defeated Righteous Jesse. Hardway Heater was representing KOBK. Righteous Jesse hadn't wrestled in a while. This was his retirement match. This was brutal. This was bloody, violent. This was a legitimate death match. Hardway Heater defeated Jesse by literally throwing him off of a stage through a door and light tube bridge over some chairs. Totally brutal show and finish. Thoroughly enjoyed this show. Check it out. Use code Fight Talk. It's over on independentwrestling.tv. KOBK One More.
And Kylie Rae won the Freelance Rumble. I'm just happy Kylie Rae is back wrestling again. She was pregnant. That's why she took time off recently, the most recent time off. So, but she's back. She won the Freelance Rumble. Again, good to see her back. She's going to be facing Storm Grayson soon for the Freelance Championship. Jensen, I have to run. So
okay,
I'll let you
I'll wrap the show
talking about it. Everyone enjoy the interview with David Penzer. Don't follow me on Twitter. Bye, everybody.
See you, Jeremy. Well, this is different, y'all. Usually Jeremy's the one doing this part of the show while I clock in for the shoot job, but I don't have to clock in for the shoot job until a little later today. So I'll talk a little bit about, a little bit about Kylie Rae winning the Freelance Rumble. Jeremy was just talking about that. She did win. She entered the Rumble at number 1, went all the way through, won the whole thing. It came down to her and Storm Grayson. Storm Grayson is the current Freelance champion. Basically, the end of the match came down to the 2 of them. Storm Grayson's finisher is it's like a V trigger, like the version where like you see Kenny do it a lot, where they're kind of in like a 619 position on the middle rope and get hit with the running V trigger. Storm throws Kylie over the top, so she's like kind of draped on the outside on the ring apron with her head through the ropes, and he goes for his V trigger. She lowers her shoulder and throws him over the top rope to win the whole thing. So Kylie Rae wins the Freelance Rumble, entering at number 1, eliminates the current champion to win the match, and it sets up a world title match between Storm Grayson and Kylie Rae that's going to be coming up on the 10th anniversary event for Freelance. So check that out. That's also available over on independentwrestling.tv. So thanks everyone for watching. I'm going to air the interview here in just a second that Jeremy was talking about. It's me, Jeremy, and David Penzer. David Penzer, y'all should know if you're longtime wrestling fans. He was the ring announcer for WCW. He was also ring announcer for a long time for TNA Wrestling and also had a brief return for Impact in recent years. So this was a legendary kind of bucket list type of interview for someone like me. I'm a 90s, late 80s kid technically, but I grew up in the 90s. I was a huge WCW fan, grew up in Atlanta. So like Dave Penzer was legitimately one of the voices of my childhood. I mentioned that in the interview to him. So this was really, really cool to be able to do. We talk about his book. We talk about his time in WCW, his time in TNA, the infamous, him essentially getting attacked by Kurt Angle on screen in TNA years ago. That was something people bring up a lot. We talk about his on-air feud in WCW with Chris Jericho. We talk about a whole lot of stuff. So I'm going to do my best to cue this up, and I apologize in advance if there's any kind of technical or streaming issues. To my knowledge, everything's working okay at the moment, and if anything happens, I'll try to jump back on here and get it fixed for you as fast as possible. But that all said, I'm going to try to load this up. So this is David Penzer on the Creator Spotlight, and I will be back after the interview to wrap the show up. Enjoy the interview, everyone, and thank you very much for watching. Welcome to the Creator Spotlight here on the Spotlight and Fightful. I am Stephen Jensen, joined as always by Jeremy Lambert. And our guest today is one of the voices of my childhood. You know him from WCW and TNA Wrestling. He also has a new book out called Sitting Ringside, Volume 1. It's by David Penzer and Guy Evans. Our guest today, of course, is David Penzer. Thanks for joining us. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, so are we. As I mentioned, you are a voice of my childhood. I grew up in the 90s, just like Jeremy. We're late 80s kids, grew up throughout the Monday Night Wars and everything. So you are a person that I saw on my TV screen growing up, and it's an honor to have you on, man. What's it like all these years later, talking about WCW still to this day?
It's crazy, man. And, I call it the improbable, impossible journey. Wrestling's changed a lot, but back in 1990, they didn't let people that didn't have wrestling experience or referee experience into the backstage area. It just didn't happen. So many things had to go right. So many people had to see something in me that probably wasn't there. So it's just 30 years later I talk about it in the book, the whole journey, but when I started it was almost like, how do I keep this going another day? How do I keep this going another week? 30 years later here, and I'm so blessed to just have it keep going. It's crazy.
In starting with WCW, I know that you get into it in the book, but I want to touch on something you just said about people saw something in you that maybe you didn't see. When did you start to see it? And was there a moment, or maybe somebody said something of like, hey, you got this, like you can do this, you're good?
Jody Hamilton believed in me, the Masked Assassin. He was ironically one of my favorite wrestlers growing up, watching championship wrestling from Florida in the 1970s. And he didn't so much say it, but his confidence of bringing me back every week and letting me be around the guys and pick up tasks, like I call it stooging around, sign-in sheets and running guys for interviews. And, after a little while, once they keep bringing you back and once they could stay, Jody basically said, plan on coming back unless I call you and tell you not to. Well, then you sort of get a feeling that maybe, this improbable thing might end up working out, but I'm still not anywhere close to being in front of a microphone at that point, but still, I'm there and I'm working, I'm bringing guys up and, stooging around. So that's probably one.
Yeah. I've actually heard old interviews. I guess they're old already at this point, years back, about you talking about those days of you being a stooge, kind of when you're getting your feet wet and kind of earning your place in WCW. And I know that.
The boss pops in.
Listen, I am illegally doing this while driving.
What an honor I get. The big boss pops in.
Give me a ring announcement.
I'm going to tell
you
Triple
didn't
H
even announce me properly. I show up here with no introduction whatsoever, with a legendary ring announcer. What kind of treatment is this?
Better than you got from Triple H.
I don't. He sent me that dude. That dude sent me cheese. What are you sending me?
Did he really?
Did they send you cheese? Is that a true story?
Yes.
He posted it. He posted
yes, he sent me
I saw that,
cheese.
but I figured that can't possibly be right. That's tremendous.
No, they did. Why would I lie about that?
I thought you were just. I thought it was like an inside joke or something.
It's so funny because most of the people in the wrestling business thought that I was ribbing them. I wasn't. They sent me cheese.
I thought it was somebody.
I wonder what Mike Johnson got.
Cheese. He got it too. We showed each other our notes.
That's funny.
I gotta hop off here. I'm about to lose service.
Yeah,
thanks for showing up.
Sean's gonna get into an accident. There you go, David. You were giving us some hell offline there. I delivered on Sean Ross Sapp for you.
And I got the true story on the cheese.
Yes. That's a scoop. That's an important scoop there.
That's tremendous.
Yes. What was I just talking about?
Cheese?
Oh, yeah.
Why?
It's
why
because
not pick like I don't know. Why not pick like cupcakes or steaks, like Omaha steaks or something?
I have the scoop on this, and it is because Sean said after the press conference and after everything had happened, he said, I would like a gift basket of the finest French cheeses as an apology. So he got the finest Connecticut cheeses, I guess. So there you go.
In all fairness to those guys, knowing Triple H a little, I haven't spoken to him in 25 years, but getting to know him a little bit, I think he was more trying to like get the guy off the hook who was mumbling and bumbling than he was trying to insult anybody, in all fairness.
Yeah. The question, Lucas, he does a great job. I don't want to say anything bad about him, but he was the framing of the question wasn't the best with that. And then I think Triple H was, Triple H answered the way he answered. I'm not going to say anything.
When it was also like the press conference was over, like it was like done, and they were like, "We'll take one more question just because we got a little extra time." And then like that was the question, and I think that was like that irritated him. That he was like, "I'm going to stick around extra, and like you're going to ask me that." Like he wanted a softball to go out on.
Don't do these press conferences if you just
but a lot of time in the rest business, if I'm being honest, if somebody a lot of times Penzer said that? Why would you listen to a word Penzer said? You know what I mean? So that's the go-to kind of reaction in the wrestling business. So I don't think he meant anything by it. Like I said, I haven't spoke to the guy in 25 years, but I spent 3 months on the road with him when he first started, me and Pee Wee Anderson, when he was terrorizing. And, it didn't come off as mean-spirited to me. It came off as more of like smiling when he said it. But he got his cheese, so God bless him.
He got cheese, and he got an apology note or a thank you note, some type of note there.
Yes.
Go ahead, Jensen. We were talking about stooging.
Yeah,
Gil Kim calls you a stooge. Penzer.
We thought about putting making the title of the book Stooge of the Year. Seriously, that was in serious consideration. There's a fine line between running errands and kissing ass. And I might have crossed over it a couple of times, but back in the day, that's sort of what you had to do to make yourself valuable. You weren't a wrestler. The main stars didn't talk to me. I hung out with the enhancement guys I brought up. The main guys didn't, it's not like they walked around and introduced themselves to me. So it took a little while of them seeing me and seeing that I was doing stuff and seeing that they were bringing me back. And then finally, after about 6-8 weeks, some of the guys, Brad Armstrong, Tommy Rich, they would say, Tracy Smothers was one of the first people that actually asked about me. And they would say, like, why you come here? What's your gimmick? And I'd tell them. And then Junkyard Dog named me Walking Man because all I did is walk around all day. And, eventually they took me in, but it took a while. It was a different business. You didn't go around hugging everybody that was in the locker room that you didn't know. So, but you got to stooge a little bit.
Now there's a story I remember from years ago, and let me know an update to this here. So I remember, this is a long time ago, Al Snow talking about how you had stooged him because of like getting him to sign like the enhancement talent contract that just everyone's just signed so they'd be able to work on the show. And there was like miscommunication there, most likely. You had no ill will towards him. I heard a follow-up interview where he basically said, I'll be seeing him soon, and I plan to just like squash this because like we're friends, and like I think it's just all a big misunderstanding. Did you ever squash the beef with Al Snow?
Yeah, I had him on my podcast back a few years ago when I had a podcast. Yeah, it was a big total huge misunderstanding. There's a sheet you have to sign. It basically is the sheet that says they could put you on TV forever and ever. It's the why that nobody could get compensated for anything on WWE Network or Peacock, whatever they're calling it these days, because of those sheets that I walked around signing, and everybody had to sign them, from Ric Flair to Rick fill in the blank job guy, enhancement guy, and that's also how you got paid. So you didn't get paid if your name wasn't on that list. You had to print your name and sign it. And that's why they wanted to make sure that you signed it, because the wrestler wanted to get paid, and they wanted to make sure they were covered for you coming back and saying, I want more money because you're showing my match again. So he wanted to read it. Most people just signed it because they wanted to get paid. He wanted to read it, which is fine. And then I went over to Terry Taylor, who was in the same locker room, and I said, I really don't know about this sheet. I just walk around telling people to sign it so they could get paid. Maybe you want to go over there and explain to him, what it is, if you know what it is. I don't know. He seems a little concerned with it, and it's above my pay grade. And there was like huge heat. I didn't even know we had heat, but then word came out, podcast started and word came out, and it was squashed in 30 seconds. It was a total misunderstanding.
That's good to know that was squashed. It just seemed like a misunderstanding. I mean, so I'm that's good. That's good to know. Go ahead, Jeremy. What's your next question?
I want to ask, we're going to talk a lot about the book, but one of the things that I found really interesting about the book, and I think it's a big selling point of the book, is the production notes from WCW events. And specifically, I think one thing that is highlighted is the production note.
Oh, we lost you for a second.
Yeah.
You mentioned the production notes, and then you cut out for just a second.
Yeah, so the production notes, specifically the production notes for like the final WCW, but I want to know what went into including this, and was this your decision, Guy's decision, collaborative decision, and just the overall process of not only including the production notes, but gathering them and getting them together to put in the book?
Well, they're the actual formats of the show. And it's sort of cool to see the evolution of the format. We got 1993 format where it's a one-pager, Bobby Eaton versus blank, and then Jody Hamilton would fill in the enhancement guy. Then you see the last Nitro format, and it's detailed production notes with what highlights of what the guys are going to say in their promos and stuff. So it's fun to see that. That's the whole reason this whole project started. I was cleaning out my desk, and I found a file folder with all these old, crazy, never before seen rare formats going back to the 90s, 93, 95, 90, the Thunder where David Arquette won the world title, the last Nitro, a bunch of stuff. And I figured that it probably would be something that people would want to see, but I didn't know how to, get it out there. So I took a picture of one of the formats. Wasn't the last Nitro. That was we didn't say a word to anybody, not even to people that knew about the book about that until it came out, because we figured somewhere out there, someone else might have one. And if word got out, they were going to beat us to it. So that was like a blood oath secret. But, and I'm surprised that it hadn't gotten out, quite frankly. But yeah, so I put something on Twitter, any ideas what this is worth? I have 200 pages of them. They're rare, never before seen, how the sausage is made kind of stuff, which people really like, see how the sausage is made. So Guy reached out to me and said, give me a call in the morning. And I said, okay. So I called him, and he said, we should do a scrapbook. We could put those formats out, and, you could tell stories about the guys in the formats. And I said, all right, that sounds like fun. So we started doing that. And I had never had any intention of doing my story on me, but guys started, looking into my background and asking me some questions. And about 3 months in, he said to me, I want to make it an autobiography. I said, with no formats? And he said, no. We'll still have the formats in there, but it'll be like, half autobiography and half, bonus material. And, thank God he's such a great writer. He really did wonders to my story. It's an interesting story, but the way he told it really weaved you in. I like to joke about the fact that, I didn't see the book until about 3 weeks before it came out, and he would send me a chapter a night. And excuse me. Sorry about that.
Okay.
I like the third or fourth chapter in, I looked at my wife and I said, this is my life story, and I can't wait to see what comes next. I'm on the edge of my seat reading my story. He told it so great. And so thank God for him. He's brilliant. And so we kind of had 2 in 1. And there are some bundles that you could get at davidpenzerbook.com, all one word, davidpenzerbook.com, where you receive actual printed out formats as opposed to just being in the book. A lot of people have told me that have ordered them that they're going to try to go to a WrestleCon or a StarCast and get Ric Flair and Sting to sign the format page with the last match ever in Nitro history, and then frame it and put it on their wall. So that's pretty cool. So so if you want to go to davidpenzerbook.com to look at the bundles, and then, the book could be picked up on Amazon if you're not interested in the bundles. But yeah, I'm excited. People are into it. It's really get the word around, and people really like to see how the sausage is made, as I said.
Yeah, that's a really cool idea, getting that signed by Flair and Sting. That's going to be a really cool item. I got so many questions I could ask you because you were, a part of WCW and TNA wrestling for so long in this wrestling industry. Just kind of in general, like, I know you started in WCW in the early 90s, so you were there to see wrestling, because I'm from Atlanta, Georgia, so I was, WCW, a WCW kid, 100%. And what was it like seeing that company go from kind of like a Southern wrestling company to like the heights that it had in like the mid to late 90s, and just kind of like how popular wrestling got, just being like the airports and stuff, as like this became so popular from the time you got in up until like, the 2000s.
Well, before I answer the question, I'll point out the obvious. Somewhere along the way, you went from an Atlanta guy to a Minnesota guy. But
yes. So this is my good call. Good call. I'm still a Cody Rhodes guy though. So there you go.
Yeah, there you go. But to answer your question is, we started feeling it even before the Monday Night Wars, when Randy Savage came in. A lot of that doesn't get reported, but even before Hulk came in, Savage came in, and Savage and Flair had a feud on top. And, we were still just doing primarily Southern cities, but I can remember one time in Greenville, we would average maybe 1,200 people there, and we had over 3,000. And everybody after the show was like, something's happening, And then Hulk came in, and, celebrities came in, and then the crazy idea for doing live head-to-head that Eric made up off the top of his head, sitting in front of Ted Turner, and surprisingly he said okay. And so it got pretty cool, man. And I talk in the book at length. There's a whole chapter, I think, about at one point being pretty full of myself, not kind of blowing off old friends, and I think there's a quote in there that, I didn't say this, but the guy took my story and he made it. He came up with this great line. The best man to my wedding and me to his was a guy named Lenny. And I think I wrote a line that says, "Who needs Lenny when you're riding with the Horseman?" So, right. Yeah, but the roar of the crowd is a powerful drug. And, my only roar really was the first roar of the night. I got to go out and say, "Good evening, Minnesota," and then the crowd would pop. And, that's, you could call Mick Foley would call that cheap heat, and I'd agree with him. But hell, why not take advantage of it? That was a way to get the crowd pumped up. We were in their city, mentioned them by name. How you doing tonight? Are you ready for World Championship Wrestling? And, that gets addicting. People talk about it, but I got to experience it. And when it goes away, it takes a while to get used to the fact that there's not that crowd pop anymore. Even when I was back in Impact after the pandemic ended and we were able to go back in front of audiences, which is a whole nother story that I'm sure will be in volume 2 of our book. But, it's still got a rise out of me, good evening, Las Vegas. Boom. It's an aphrodisiac for sure.
Were you also, because I know you were living around the Atlanta area in this time as well. Did the lifestyle get to you as well? Like you're hanging out with the wrestlers in your spare time, getting dinner and stuff, and like that all kind of add to it. Also, like even like not even just the on screen, the pops there. It's like that whole lifestyle in general.
Yeah, I lived in Peachtree City. We hung out with the Benoits. Which unfortunately is going to be another volume 2 story I'm going to have to tell. Grunges, Fit Finleys, Steven Regals, and Dave Taylor. And then there was a guy who was a cameraman for the company, and his wife, who are still dear friends to this day. And there was that little group of us. And, on a rare weekend off, we'd go out and get drunk and sing karaoke at the local Japanese place. And, I remember taking Fit Finley to go see Tony Orlando because they had like a little amphitheater there, and they'd have all kinds of different acts, but you subscribe to the season package, and it was all golf cart pass, so you could ride your golf cart to the amphitheater. And what Fit Finley's like, I'm not going to see Tony Orlando. I'm like, he has some cool songs. And next thing I know, Fit Finley's, he'll kill me for saying this, singing Tie a Yellow Ribbon Around the Old Oak Tree. And, so yeah, we had fun times, and I missed those times. And then, we lost grunge, and the Benoit thing aside, I kind of fell out of touch with Regal, but the Finleys and then the other couple who did the camera and also was a performer on one of the first wrestling albums, the one that Michael Hayes produced with the entrance music. His name was Darwin, and his wife was Jill, and still dear friends to this day.
I have 2 follow-ups. One related, one not quite as related. The first one, go-to karaoke song.
Can't Help Falling in Love with You.
Okay.
Elvis, gets over the wife. You kind of don't have to. You could be a shitty singer and still pull it off a little bit.
Well, karaoke, it's all about, it's not how you actually sing, it's how you perform. The second question, you mentioned talking about the roar of the crowd and getting addicted to that. Did you ever want to fight Michael Buffer?
Not at all. Michael, everybody thinks I got heat with Mike Buffer. I nothing could be further from the truth. Look, I'm a capitalist. I believe in the American dream. I live the American dream. I didn't live it to the extent that Michael Buffer lived it, but I could have if I would have come up with a catchphrase like that, I suppose, and been in the right place at the right time with the right execution. It got the crowd going. I couldn't have got the crowd going with a catchphrase like that, but he was famous, and he would say, the whole build up and then get ready to rumble, and the crowd would go nuts. And how could I be angry with that? He was super nice, always respectful, said something really nice. Haven't talked to Michael in a while, but my brother saw him about 7 years ago and said something really nice to my brother that I include in the book that I take as a badge of honor. So yeah, no heat with Buffer at all. I mean, God bless him.
I didn't think you actually had heat with him, by the way. I was just trying to frame that question in a more fun way than.
No, but a lot of people assumed that I was annoyed by it, right. And I wasn't annoyed by it. No, I wasn't annoyed by it at all. Look, this was all about living my dream. I'm not going to worry about somebody else's dream. I'm not making $500 million and have my own video games and all that, and that's okay. But I've lived my dream for 30 years, and very few people get a chance to live their dream. So I can't complain about how others might have lived theirs better than mine. I mean, I never went there with anybody. It's always been about, continuing the journey into something that I fell in love with when I was 11 years old and never thought I'd be involved in. So, you call me the voice of your childhood. That's such an honor, and it's so humbling, because I was just trying to hang on to something that I fell in love with and see how long I could keep it going. So that's a super high honor for you to say that, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. I truly mean it. And I'm glad we were able to clear up. Officially, you are not annoyed by Michael Buffer, but somebody that you annoyed was Chris Jericho. And I remember this back in those days.
I still do. I still do.
I was gonna two-part question, so this is perfect. First off, what was it like being a part of that storyline so early on in Chris Jericho's career? You had like a little mini feud with one another because you were announcing the people who were defeating him, and he was throwing fits. And then the second part of that is, are you surprised, or kind of what are your thoughts on like the fact that Chris Jericho is still on weekly television on the Turner networks to this day?
Pretty crazy. That was Chris's idea. Me and Chris riding down the road. He wanted to turn heel, chicken shit heel. And, I would say that, I threw a few ideas in, but it was 90% his thing. He would say, no, Penzer, I never used one idea you had. Whether that's just Chris being Chris with me, I don't know or not, but that I'm pretty damn sure he would. But no, it was cool to be involved, and people, all of a sudden I sort of had an identity, and instead of just a guy in the colorful bow ties and cummerbunds. And yeah, as far as Chris, man, you could, people like to talk about greatest of all times, and you could argue stuff, but in my mind, Chris is by far the greatest of all time in recreating himself into so many different characters and gimmicks that make money, that are successful. And it's the little things that he does that you don't even realize. Like with our gimmick, he would, tear off my tuxedo, then he'd take my chair and he'd hit it against the ring post. And then the next week, he'd come out with a tuxedo and a chair. Well, the tuxedo jacket is nice because you did rip it, but like I'm in a building with like 5,000 chairs. Why do you have to bring me a chair? I've been sitting on a chair half the night. It's just those little things. It's the clicking of the pen before he said you're on the list. He made a clicking, think about that. He made the clicking of the pen into a super pop. I mean, it's those little things that other people don't think of that really makes him stand out. And, people could point to who made singing along to people's entrance music cool again. But the Fozzy thing really took off, and Judas, and gave him new life. And gave his band new life. God bless him. I mean, the song became synonymous with everybody in wrestling knew the words of the song. So, just very smart guy, very talented. Nice guy when he wants to be. I'm just kidding. He just likes to bust my chops. We get along better in smaller doses. I think I annoy him still to this day. Like after a while, like I went to his house for his a party, because he lives about 10 minutes from me, and we got along great. And then he invited me back for Sunday Fun Day the next night for football, the next day for football. And then, after that, it was like, maybe you should go away for a while. Just something about me annoys him in large quantities. So, I'd rather keep it. Hey, we'll see each other every year and have a blast. Then we'll see each other every other weekend and not be friends anymore. And I'm not blaming him for that. There's just something about my personality that the longer he's around it, the more it annoys him.
Were there any other pitches, whether it was in WCW or TNA? And there was the famous moment with Kurt Angle, but were there any other pitches to anybody else from anybody else of like, hey, let me get like some heat on Penzer. This would be an easy way to make the crowd not like me.
Savage did something in his pay-per-view match with DDP for the world title, I remember. So that was a pretty big deal. Yeah, there were a few things. I remember one time the Giant picked me up by my lapels. I still have a picture of it. Right. And yeah, there was some stuff, but not very often. that was fine. I'm not an athlete, you know, and I don't want to roll around with those guys. You know, Kurt Angle, you know, pretty much was the cherry on top, and you know, that was interesting. But no, not, I mean, a few times, but it wasn't, you can't go to it too often. If you do, then it's just abusing the ring announcer and there's no heat there. Now,
sorry, Jeremy, you might be asking this also, but I just for people who may not know about the Kurt Angle thing that we're referencing, because I know you've talked about it plenty before, David, so I don't know how much you even want to like rehash it, or if there's any like I don't think you have any, well, I'll let you speak on your own behalf. Essentially what had happened, for people who don't know, there was an angle where Kurt Angle attacked David Penzer on television, and he hit you with a brutal elbow to the face that legitimately swelled your face up bad. And yeah, can you just, I guess, talk about that? Because that was a very strange situation, like watching that as it happened.
Yeah, I look like the Elephant Man. He was very apologetic afterwards. He felt bad. I joke with him about it if I see him on the road at like a convention or something. But the issue is that I had another company that did airbrush tattoos at a pretty high level at one point, and they had a trade show in Atlanta that I was in Orlando, and I asked Jeff if I could be late for a couple tapings during this trade show, and he said yes. So I rolled in about 5:30, 6 o'clock. TV started 7:30. We went over it a little bit, but he said in hindsight, after the fact, that he laid it in because he was afraid I wasn't going to sell it right because we didn't have time to go over it. And I know he feels bad about that, but part of me thinks that if the same thing happened today, he'd still lay it in because that's the way Kurt was. Kurt laid everything in. And I still think if he thought in his mind that the ring announcer's not going to sell my freaking elbow, I'm going to lay it in a little bit. I think he'd do the same thing tomorrow. And I don't think he'd apologize that he hurt me, but I don't think he'd be apologetic for, you know, wanting to get the right results.
And I think I've heard you talk about before that, like, that was the only thing out of that whole sequence that actually like landed and hurt, right? Like the ankle lock was safe. The he hit you with the shoe a whole bunch of times, but like,
yeah, the shoe to the cheek, to the other cheek that he didn't decimate. Yeah, he told me to put my hands over my head a certain way, and I did, and he overswung. But no, the ankle lock was fine. I think he clotheslined me. I didn't feel it, probably because my cheek had just been decimated by his forearm. Yeah, I mean, at the time, you know, it wasn't the happiest day of my life, but, you know, I got a bonus. I got to miss a night of TV and still get paid. And, you know, it all healed and everything looks the same. And, you know, it is what it is, you know. If I complain about it, I sound like a crybaby, and I don't want to be crybaby, you know. It happened, and, you know, the world went on.
Well, for what it's worth, I believe I've heard, I'm almost positive it was Jeff Jarrett himself talking about this, maybe with Conrad, but I think he mentioned that like it was noticeable, like it stood out to people that you didn't complain after that. Apparently you just like, you took the lump and you just, you know, business was business. And like, that probably went a long way with a lot of people that like you didn't even complain, because Kurt Angle, obviously massive star, probably the biggest name in the company at the time. And, you know, not to say that people should do that to one another, you know what I mean? But I think that it went a long way that like you didn't complain about it.
Where's that going to get me though? You know,
right.
Where's that? There's not going to get me anywhere. Kurt Angle's the big star. I'm the ring announcer. And that's not going to get me anywhere. So it's just going to get me heat with Kurt. So you just, you know, I got a bag of ice, I put it on my face, and I got dressed, and I drove home with a bag of ice on my face, and they sent me a nice bonus. And, you know, by the next week, you know, you really couldn't tell. So, you know, it was uncomfortable. It hurt, but, you know, again, you know, this is the wrestling business. People get hurt, like legitimately hurt. You know, people get paralyzed, knock on wood, legitimately paralyzed. And I'm going to bitch because my cheekbone got hurt a little bit. That's just, you know, that's an easy way for them to tell you to find yourself a door.
Where they're going back to some pitches, you know, ring announcers have sometimes wrestled. Howard Finkel, of course, would have the tuxedo matches and everything. Were there any ideas for you to ever do a match?
I did one thing in Puerto Rico. We did an XWF invasion in Puerto Rico, and it was me and Jimmy Hart rolling around with the referee and the manager. And I never blew up so quick in my life. It gave me mad respect for how talented these guys are out that could go out there and even go 5 minutes. I never thought I mean, we weren't doing anything. We were just rolling around pretending to hit each other for a couple of minutes. And then I think I was the one who got pinned. But yeah, I was so blowed up. And Jimmy Hart's like, Penzer, you're going to blow up out there. And I said, nah, we're just rolling around. I remember afterwards looking at Jimmy and saying, holy shit, you were right. But I didn't have any appreciation of it. There was a thing I did in Wildside Wrestling, Bill Barron's old company, where AJ Styles and so many others started, where I came in as an arrogant heel ring announcer a couple times to their star young announcer. And you can still find that on Twitter. There's still video of that. And I've got to say, I was a pretty damn good heel. I sent it to Scott D'Amore when I first saw it on Twitter, and he wrote back, he goes, that was a damn good promo, Penzer. So yeah, that I enjoyed. That was like sort of like a bucket, checking something off the bucket list. The wrestling, not so much.
What are some of your more positive memories of TNA wrestling? Like we talked about, the Kurt Angle thing just now, but like just being a part of TNA, and because they had great matches. I mean, for a long time there, they were really the main alternative to the WWE product in the United States. What was your time like? Just some positive memories of TNA wrestling, and then also your return to Impact years later.
Well, in WCW, I was emotionally invested for a lot of reasons. I was rising up the ranks. I was Johnny Ace's assistant, and Johnny Ace was Eric's assistant. I was sitting in on booking meetings, coming up with ideas. I was growing in the ranks, and there was not a plan B. I mean, there was WWF, where Howard Finkel and Tony Chimmel were, and there was no room for David Penzer. And then there was a WCW. So emotionally, I was invested in it when I didn't have a way. I didn't know. I'd never done anything before other than drive a limousine to make extra money when I first started out driving guys up. I was a mobile DJ, but mobble DJs still get the same pay for 4 hours of work that they did when I was 20 years old. It's easier because they don't have to carry the records around. But anyway, I digress. So I just didn't know what I was going to do to earn a living. When I was in TNA, as I mentioned, I had a successful company. And so if it all went away tomorrow, I wasn't emotionally invested in it. I wanted it to work for Jeff and Mike Tenay and those guys who were good friends. But it was a sort of cool not to have to be walking on eggshells, and if something goes wrong, I wonder if the company's going to go out of business. I wonder if they're going to make cuts. I didn't have to worry about that. So to me, it was just extra money and doing something I love. Some of my most vivid favorite memories are just sitting around the table in the executive offices of Universal backstage with Mike Tenay and Don West, and different people would come in. Jim Cornette, Bubba Ray Dudley, Kevin Nash would come in every taping, and so many other people, and just tell stories with the guys. And Don obviously was over the top personality. Ended up being one of my favorite people I ever worked with. Mike's a great guy, and those guys are funny as hell. So that was that for me was just sitting around that conference table and just being able to be a wrestling fan and listen to all this stuff, was just without having to worry about if I was going to come back next week. I wanted to come back next week so I could sit around the table, less ring announce. As far as Impact goes, that was weird. I came back a couple of times for short spurts, but Scott called me during the pandemic, and very early on in the pandemic, when nobody knew if everybody was going to die or not. And, people were still wiping off their groceries before they brought them in the house, which in hindsight didn't make any difference. And the first one I drove up because my wife didn't want me flying, and there were very little flights. So that was an interesting experience in an empty arena with no fans. It was a totally different way of doing things. Normally a pay-per-view, I would go out at 7:30 for an 8:00 show. I didn't welcome the crowd, hype them up, tell them what they're going to see tonight, introduce, the announce team, all that stuff. And the first or second or even third time that I just walked into an empty studio 5 minutes before the pay-per-view, put my earpiece on and sat in my chair was like the weirdest thing, because it just, it's not natural. And, you know, for somebody who did it in front of fans for so long, I can't even, it probably was easier for like a new ring announcer who had never experienced that, but even must be tough. But it was strange, but it was nice when the fans came back, and that was a crazy couple of years there. But yeah, I finished up with them in December, and it was a great. If that's the last regular gig I have in this business, it was a great way to go out. They treated me fantastic, and you know, only thing I'm sad about is that Scott didn't last much longer than I did, which is a shame. But you know, I don't know the details behind it, but it's just very sad.
Yeah. One follow up I had about that. You mentioned Don West. Rest in peace, of course, to Don West. He was honestly my favorite commentary team of all time is Mike Tenay and Don West. I've loved the two of them together, and I was a fan of Don West when he did the home shopping stuff with the baseball cards and stuff. I knew him as like that guy before he got into wrestling, so I was always like a really big fan of like his energy. He was always very entertaining, very passionate. Do you have any other like Don West stories you can throw out there for us?
Oh God, he's just so funny, you know. And he's, you know, I could count on two hands the number of people that I talked to and hang up. And when we hung up, I'd say, you know, love you, man, and they'd say love you too. And Don West was one of those people. Super great guy. I remember when he turned heel on Mike Tenay, and everybody remembers this. You know, my wife and your wife are friends, and he you know, there's something about turning heel that just is fun. And I remember they, you know, went over that for weeks, and, you know, they were ribbing each other about it, you know, legitimately ribbing each other about, Don would say something like when they were talking about it, and then Tenay would go, that's a little too close to home, man. And same thing, vice versa. So, but yeah, Don had a blast with it. And, just two wonderful people. I mean, so sad when we lost him, and but one of the best. I never saw the home shopping stuff live, but hey, when you're parried on Saturday Night Live more than once, even once, I mean that means you're doing something right. He was just that kind of guy, man. Super inventive, super funny, and just, you know, probably my favorite person one of my top 5 favorite people in the wrestling business.
I want to ask, I don't know if you can say anything about it, but were you interviewed for the Who Killed WCW documentary that's coming out in less than a month now?
I was not. I was in talks with them about it, and they were interested in it, but I don't know if this was what I was told or if this is true, but at some point they had to just decide, you know, okay, these are the 8-10 people that we're going to interview. And I didn't make the cut. And I understood. It was no hard feelings. You know, if you got to pick between David Penzer and Eric Bischoff, or David Penzer and Kevin Nash, you're stupid not to get, you know, the main guys, and not, you know, they were going to use me sort of as my book is, you know, as just a non-wrestler sitting there watching it all and what my perspective was. But they ended up cutting it. That was like one of the last cuts they made, and that's cool. I would have been excited to do it. But quite frankly, if you want to hear my take on it, just buy the book, Sitting Ringside Volume 1, davidpenzerbook.com. It's basically what I would have said if I was on it. And I'm looking forward to seeing it.
Kind of along the same topic, and you may cover this in your book, but is it true that had Eric Bischoff purchased WCW and had not gone to Vince and the WWE, that like you were going to be a big part of like the talent relations?
I don't know what my job would have been. I know that the plan was that, like I said earlier, John Laurinaitis was Eric's assistant, not like secretary, but assistant. When Eric wasn't there, because Eric wasn't there every taping, Johnny would run the show based on what Eric wanted him to do. I was John's assistant towards the very end, maybe the last 6-8 months. Eric had come up with a way to monitor the ratings. You know, the way the ratings were monitored got really, as time went on, got to the point where now you could like see almost minute by minute or match by match, what fans were not watching and what fans were watching. And we created a metric for that. And my job for Eric and Johnny was for all the TVs to, once the ratings came out, is to put together a report on that. And, Laurinaitis had said, and maybe it's a good thing it didn't happen, but I still would have loved to have seen where that went. I'm supposed to be Eric's assistant. Nothing's guaranteed in this business or life, but I'm supposed to be Eric's assistant. I want you to be my assistant because you're doing a great job with this. Now, I know Johnny's full of crap a lot, but I honestly believe him when he said that. I think he saw, in me, someone who wanted to work hard and get to that next level of not just being the ring announcer, but someone who was involved in the office. And I don't know. I will say this: if that would have happened, there's not a doubt in my mind that I would have been a VP of something, at some point in WCW. Now, there's not a doubt in my mind. I was on my way. Now, you can't say, it didn't happen. So, my story's different, and it's even more interesting, I think. But yeah, that was, I don't know about talent relations, but I would have been involved. I was involved in talent relations till the end.
David, as we start to wrap up here, I want to give you another chance to, of course, plug the book, plug everything you got going on with this. And I know this is volume 1. Jensen, do you have one quick more?
I got one last question, just real quick, because it's a name you mentioned a handful of times. You mentioned Jody Hamilton. I got to interview his son. A lot of people don't even know it's his son, Nick Patrick. I interviewed him at a Deep South show. I guess it was late last year. Do you have any kind of relationship with Nick Patrick? Because I know you mentioned Jody Hamilton a whole lot.
Yeah. We talk on the phone every once in a while. We text and keep in touch via social media. He was the first podcast he was ever on to talk about the Sting Hogan Fast Count Slow Count was my Sitting Ringside podcast years ago. He gave me that exclusive, which really helped build that podcast brand, which was also called Sitting Ringside, ironically enough. But if you get a good name, you use it as many times as you can. But yeah, we stay in touch, and his father was it's funny, one of my heroes in my childhood, and then one of my heroes in my adult life for totally different reasons. And mad respect for that entire family. Always been nothing but great to me.
Again, I'm gonna give a chance to plug the book with everything. It is Sending of Ringside. You can go to Amazon right now. You can go to davidpenzer.com and get it. But this is labeled volume 1. You've kind of mentioned a possible volume 2 coming down. Is there any updates on? Have you already started kind of putting ideas together for what volume 2 might look like?
Yes, we're finally going to tell the story of the XWF that's never been told. I have those same treasure trove of WCW documents never before seen. I found business plan, extensive business plans and formats and all kinds of stuff from the XWF. So I want to finally tell that story. It's never been told. And people always ask about it. Everybody in the Impact locker room towards the end, if the XWF would come up, it would be like all the guys, because the guys are all in one locker room and the girls are in another one. But all the guys would be like hovering around. They wanted to hear about it. It's sort of like that lost story that never got told. So we have all that with the bonus material. We'll talk about obviously TNA. Unfortunately, we have to talk about Benoit thing because I was super close to that. And, being Roddy Piper's tour manager for 45 days, crisscrossing the country on a tour bus with Roddy Piper, who again was one of my favorite wrestlers growing up. And then TNA and Impact Wrestling and the pandemic, and we'll probably end around there. But it's just, it was Guy's idea to do 2 books. He thought it was too much for one book. So this one's pretty much my ride into the business and in WCW. And the next one is sort of what happened from there, which was also improbable and impossible, but happened. And, my luck streak continued.
Were you familiar with Guy's work on the first, I don't know first, but like the Nitro book?
Yeah. He interviewed me a couple times for the book. We always hit it off. if you notice, if you look, I noticed this the other day. I always read like little, I skip around in the book and read like a couple pages at a time. And I was looking, I said, I'll go back. And he thanks certain people like in like a little mini paragraphs and the acknowledgments. But the first person he thanks when he just lists people is me. I like to think that's because I made an impression on him. But I think he enjoys the way I tell stories, and that my perspective as a fan, watching watching this happen as a fan, with the exclusivity that I had. So yeah, we knew each other, and I've read Nitro book. It's a fantastic piece of work. He got guys that forgot 20 years ago that took business people like that work for Turner Broadcasting that took off their resume ever working for a wrestling company because they were horrified by it. And not only did he find them, not only did he get them on the phone, but he got them to talk about something that they didn't want to talk about ever for the rest of their lives. I think he tells me it's the English accent. And maybe it is, but yeah, that's an excellent book. And again, you can get my book on Amazon, davidpenzerbook.com. It has all those bundles. You could go check those out, and follow me at Twitter at David Penzer. And you guys be sure to tag me when you put this up so I could retweet it and tell everybody what a great job you did, and that SRS's cheese story is real.
And we appreciate that. Thank you for the kind words there. And I'm not as blowing smoke, like I said, David, a legitimate voice of my childhood. So this really was really cool for I know for myself and for Jeremy as well. So
yeah, we appreciate you.
Go ahead.
Oh, so we appreciate you joining us. I was going to let everybody know the links are below on this interview, so everybody can just click directly on the links and get to davidpenzerbook.com, Amazon to get it, or to follow David on social media.
Thank you very much. It's amazing how Fightful has really made a name for itself and is one of the top, no matter what Triple H says, the most respected wrestling journalism companies. I don't know what you would call it out there. And, you guys get the scoop, almost all the scoops. It always amazes me. As a person who's never given a scoop to a wrestling journalist, unless when I was working for the XWF and I was in charge of talent relations, and I did it on purpose because I wanted something to get out. But, I was always taught that you don't do that. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, but I always wonder where you guys get your sources. But it's always I'm always scrolling on Twitter and another big story coming out in 20 minutes, and I'm like, damn. So good for you guys, and I'm glad I got to come on and talk with you. I saw the boss for a minute and a half, and I'd love to be on again, maybe when Volume 2 comes out. Stay in touch.
Awesome. Yeah, for sure. Again, that is all Sean doing all that kind of work. I just write headlines that upset a lot of wrestlers. So that's my job around here.
Well, I could think of worse jobs.
Hey, it works. Thank you again, David. We really appreciate it. Again, everyone, check out the links below. Go get the book. It's sitting ringside. It's on Amazon, davidpenzerbook.com. You get all the bundles, all the cool stuff. I mentioned it. I'll say it again with the production notes and the format sheets and everything. That's something that's you're not going to find anywhere else. And I think if you're a big fan of WCW, like Jensen and I are, like that's something that's you probably want to have in your collection. So thank you, David. We really appreciate it. And guys,
had a blast. Thanks.
Thank you, guys. We will be right back here on the Spotlight.
All right, everyone. Hope you enjoyed that interview with myself, Jeremy, and David Penzer. I know I enjoyed it as a WCW kid. I know Jeremy did as well. So that was really cool. Appreciate y'all for sticking around for the interview. And some programming notes. Next week, we will have no time limit on the show. I'm taking this whole next week off for my birthday. So this Thursday, we don't have a pre-recorded interview because I will actually be at a casino earlier in the week. So we won't be recording a pre-recorded interview. Jeremy's saying he may reach out for some surprises to show up live on the show. So next Thursday, don't know how long the show will be, but it'll probably be longer than normal. Maybe have some live guests and stuff like that. So looking forward to that next Thursday. I will also try to remember to wear a Stone Cold Steve Austin t-shirt next Thursday to make it up to y'all for the Stone Cold hate earlier. That was very unjustified on my end. I thought about it while that interview was running. I was like, I went a little harder than I probably should have on old Stone Cold. I'm a big fan, and I'll pull that back just a little bit. I'm disappointed he wasn't at WrestleMania 40, but I also don't know for sure what the circumstances were. So I got to be fair about that. I'll try to remember to make it up to y'all next week for good old Stone Cold Steve Austin. Once again, if you want to follow me on X, it's Fight Talk _. Use code Fight Talk on independentwrestling.tv. Go check out the indie shows we were talking about earlier. KOBK One More and Freelance, all available over on IWTV. The next time y'all will hear from me will be most likely Sunday. I'll record the Weekender. So over on FightfulSelect.com, Fightful Select Weekender podcast. Subscribe over there. Check out that podcast. Cover the world of independent professional wrestling and basically the stuff that doesn't really get a whole bunch of coverage elsewhere. So check that out. Appreciate y'all as always. Until next week, enjoy some professional wrestling. Happy Thursday. Happy weekend.